Order the City of Glenwood Springs City Council meeting. It is April 16th, 2026. It's regular meeting tonight. Good evening, everyone. Ryan, would you please take a roll call?
Mayor Dame.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Councilor Townsley. Councilor Schmall. Councilor Weimer. Councilor Schachter.
Here.
Councilor Smith. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ryan. Any changes to the agenda tonight? I'm not. Oh. Is that how we're going to do it tonight?
No wonder my wife loves.
It's that 03.
All right, I'm gonna give it a few seconds to see if we can fix this. I'm not aware of any changes to the agenda, so we'll leave it alone. Any conflict of interest of councillors from tonight's agenda? Also see none. Citizens appearing before us tonight for items that are not on the agenda. And that's also a no tonight. All right, that's maybe the first in quite a while. Council announcements. Who wants to go first? Councilor Townsley.
A couple quick things. The landfill vouchers are still available. They're good from, I think, April, or they're available through April 1st to the 30th. You can get them. They're good out through July 31st, I believe, for taking stuff out to the dump. The tree giveaway is this weekend, April 18th from 10 to 2. I believe Councilor Smith told me he'd called, and there are still trees over there. So if people are interested in them, get them out there. You need to register for that, I believe, before 8 o'clock tonight or
5 o'clock tomorrow night.
5 o'clock tomorrow night. There we go. And then also springtime river cleanup. We got the flyers on them here. That's coming up April 25th, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Two Rivers. Get on the city site and register for that. So those are the things I have.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Weimer.
Coach Miller Drive is going to be completely redone and upgraded this summer. For everyone who feels like that is going to impact them, there is a community information session Monday night coming up, 6 p.m. at the high school. In the meantime, if you have any questions, contact Ryan Gordon or myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. The Transportation Commission met at its regular time on April 7th, just the other day, or last week, with a delegation from the Downtown Development Authority in attendance to specifically discuss paid parking, managed parking options for downtown area. It was a very thorough discussion. There was not agreement reached between the two commissions having initiated this conversation because Transportation Commission recommended that the city move on with paid parking. They decided to confer with each other, settled on the interim agreement to emphasize enforcement of existing parking regulations downtown. And the city manager offered helpful comments about how to get that done. So that was conversation kind of took a more creative turn because we had two commissions talking to each other. I thought it was fairly cool. Also discussed at the Transportation Commission meeting itself was safety measures, protocols, policies for electric enhanced vehicles, bicycles, scooters, motorcycles on our trails. In turn, the Roaring Fork Transportation Authority held its first regional meeting that next Thursday, 2 days later, And our city transportation engineer attended that RAFTA roundtable. And so I think we were well represented, and that's going to all circle back with people learning from each other in the different towns and counties. Also on April 9th, the Colorado River Water Conservation District had a state of the river presentation over at the downtown college or at the above the library, talking primarily about the absolutely dire condition on water supply this year. This is the lowest statewide. This is the lowest snowpack ever recorded since 1880 something. It's pretty severe water supply overall, and especially in terms of the Colorado River meeting its demands all the way down to Mexico. So they were really pushing awareness of that. They also mentioned some of the things that they help do. They have a grant program. The River District has a grant program for municipal projects, which one of which went to pay for the auxiliary water supply pumping station over by Beltis Park. So the city of Glenwood Springs can take water out of the Roaring Fork River in an emergency as backup to our No Name and Grizzly Creek supplies. The Colorado Communities for Climate Action Board will meet tomorrow morning in Carbondale. For the first time ever, they're doing a remote meeting of their board, even though they got statewide representation. Everybody here, everybody anywhere is welcome to that meeting tomorrow at the Carbondale Town Hall, 9 o'clock, Friday morning, the 17th. For us, it might be of interest because there likely will be CC4CA delegates from Basalt, Aspen, Pitkin, Eagle, Snowmass, Gunnison, Carbondale, just a little opportunity. Most of those are city council or town board members. So it's kind of a neat opportunity to interact if you want to go to Carbondale at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Two events to announce from Garfield Clean Energy and Clean Energy Economy for the region. Next week on April 23rd is a solar, kind of a rooftop solar workshop intended for whoever is interested, but primarily focused on public works, planning, and facilities staff. So we've gotten the word out to our corresponding people in the city, and that hopefully will be of interest. Also at the GCE's next board meeting, May 15th, that meeting will include a roundtable of facility managers who are responsible for kind of making clean energy efficiency, especially work. So we'll be sure that Ethan knows about that and get him hopefully to attend. Two things from Colorado Mountain College that I think are of interest to this council and perhaps to anybody. April 24th at 2 p.m. at the Spring Valley campus is a sustainability workshop, kind of a hunk of the afternoon. Their whole sustainability major department is kind of providing a community update on what they do about water, energy, land, and other resources. And then a little bit closer to home here, the Colorado Mountain College Civics Education Division is holding a Civics West Slope workshop on April 28th over here at the college, at this version of the college at the Mortgage Commons. I think I did not note the time, but more detail is at Colorado MTN, coloradomountain.edu/civics. It can tell you about the whole program. They're doing a whole year of citizen engagement in government, how civics works and how people can be more engaged. So it kind of, I think, relates to what we're doing. Finally, on my list, as Councilor Weimer highlighted, there's projects going on this summer. Another one is at the 6 and 24 bicycle and pedestrian path. It is cranking. They're getting mainly utilities in so far. It's going to continue till July. The announcement part of this is bicyclists and pedestrians should steer clear. People are trying to wade through there. Not safe, not a good idea. Get out of the habit. Use the sidewalk on Devereaux. Use the shared use path on West Midland. And correspondingly, drivers are kind of being impatient and fast in there. It's a dangerous spot. Drivers need to patiently slow down and pay attention to the workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski, please.
So the Tourism Management Board conducted some stakeholder citizen workshops a couple weeks ago, and they got the results were presented to us at the meeting this month. And it was pretty interesting. A couple of things that, it just validated the focus that we've had on tourism and kind of the areas where energy has been put. But there were a couple of things that were highlighted that I thought were worth elevating. One of them is just like, this community looks for live music access, and we don't have that. So a lot of that is not going to necessarily come from the city. It's going to come from people within the city who see an opportunity. So I encourage all of our residents out there who have a passion for live music and possibly a venue to look for those opportunities, because I think the patrons would come to your establishments. The other thing that I thought was interesting was a lot of the tourist businesses have local access promotions and things during our off seasons, our shoulder seasons. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot of community awareness. So I encourage you all, if you have a favorite attraction, whether it's the Caverns or Iron Mountain, to check in with them and see if they have any kind of locals promotions, off-season promotions, things like that. And then for all of our businesses out there, there's another, Ken Murphy, who's our chair for the Colorado Tourism Office, also a local businessman, came and presented. And one of the things that he brought up was this digital passport that the Colorado Tourism Office does. It's colorado.com/passport. And this gives visitors a place to go for resources. And I popped in there, and there were shockingly few local businesses represented for restaurants, under shopping, under, like retail, any of our attractions. So if you have a business in town, go to that. It's free. It's put on by the Colorado Tourism Office, and I think it's a resource that we should utilize, especially low snow is good for tourism in Glenwood Springs, and our rivers are going to be a draw. So I think that if people in the community can seize that opportunity, it'd be great for everybody.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, we'll see none. Thank you, guys. Moving on to the consent agenda. It's a short one tonight, and I'm entertaining a motion for the consent agenda. There's two items. Councilor Schachter,
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
thank you. A motion approved. Any second? Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski,
I'll
please.
second.
And a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? We'll see none. I'll call for the question.
It passes 7-0.
Thank you, Ryan. And moving on to our first action and or presentation of tonight. And item 7 is discussion of employee housing possibility at the residences on Grand. And I believe Steve Boyd is going to take that one.
I'm going to ask our Director of HR and Finance to come present this item. I'll kind of tee it up, though. We have been talking to the residents on Grand about 15 units for workforce housing. I think we're about over the goal line with the discussions that we're having with them. So we're looking tonight to see if you guys would like to give me the permission to sign that contract.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you, Yvette Gustad, Finance HR Director. As we talked about a couple of meetings ago, we have the opportunity to rent residence on Grand, 15 units. There has been a little bit of change in that. It's been great working with these people. They've been awesome. You can tell they really want to be part of a partner with the city to help this out. So we've made 2 concessions. We're going to just take 10 units to begin with instead of 15. They will try and rent out the other 5 units. Excuse me. And then, so that would mean we would have lower to pay. And then we would have the option to pick those up. If for some reason we do get full and things keep going, as those become empty, we would then have those options to pick them up first once they became empty. They also agreed to a 90-day out so that we can try this for 90 days. If we get nobody, we can get out with no penalty. So that's a great option. In your packet, you had the marked up master lease and also the policy that we're trying to put into place. It's going to change as we go, as we kind of see how to get it put together. So we'll update you the second meeting in May on how that's going and if it works. Let's see what else. So there'll be one 2-bedroom unit, one bedroom unit, and then the rest are all studios. So, and we will open this up to all full-time people to begin with. And with that, that's kind of just a summary of where we are. What we need tonight is just, again, like Steve said, for you guys to approve him to sign the master lease and for us to go ahead and commit those. We did have that $500,000 reserve that we would use to pay this in our affordable housing. Questions?
Thank you. Thanks for the update. Questions to Yvette? Councilor Schachter, start with you.
Yvette or Steve, 2 questions. One would be, remind us, I think you did before, what is the impact, if any, on the use of these funds in this direction versus how they've been used prior? That'd be one. And the second question would just be pretty simple. Your scoring system, your rating system, do you have that broken down so it's less subjective within each category? Is it pretty lined out?
I'll take the first one. You can take the second one. So we used to have what is called, we participated in an EHOP program where that money had been given to a third party to manage, and people could apply as a down payment. So we were only helping 1 or 2 individuals a year. And it was usually the higher paid people that were participating in that program. There were a bunch of rule changes with taxes and a bunch of other things. So we stopped that program. So this money that we have in there was a return of what has been paid into that.
Thank you.
So with respect to prioritization, I don't think that's going to be a problem, at least in the beginning. We do think that we want to prioritize public safety and prioritize people that work outside that sometimes have to be on call. Beyond that, we're going to see how it goes. And it would be great to have to prioritize a little bit if we're using all of these. I think we're a ways away from that. We always want to keep a couple of them open, right? So we have the capacity if we have, a lateral transfer or something from a police officer. But this is a pilot program. We're going to see how it goes and we're going to work it out along the way. But Yvette's right. They've been great to work with, and I feel confident that they'll be good partners and we'll work out any kinks.
Thank you. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. Thank you, Yvette. I should have remembered this from previous presentations. I think you just said that of the 10 that you're going to start with, there's 1 1-bedroom and 1 2-bedroom, and
Yes.
then therefore 8 studios, motel rooms.
Mhm.
Does the optional 5 include any more bedroom types?
No, those are all
They're all
studios.
studios. So there are really only 2 true apartments in the whole place. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So 90 days, we would pay for 90 days for 10 units. And then if it goes well, we keep paying. And if it not, then we're done and we move on. And have you guys spread the news amongst, how are you planning on distributing?
We'll just send this out to all full time. We had sent out a previous, just asking if we'd have any interest, and we had about a dozen people respond. There won't be that many because probably at least half of them want the bigger units. So we will get those for 2. So we will then just send something out and send out an application for anybody who's interested and go that route as soon as, if you guys approve this.
And if the demand is low, let's just say, are we still, and it would work for maybe, I don't know, 4 units or whatever, are we still required to keep the 10?
No, after 90 days, we can walk.
But what if you get 5, and for those 5, it'd be a great solution, but we only get 5?
So if I understand you right, what you're saying is if we rent 5 of them out and we get to that 90 days, what happens to the 5 that are rented?
Correct.
Yeah, so
Or not rented. the ones that are rented or not rented.
Yeah, I think we would have the choice at that point. Right?
Okay.
After 90 days, I think that we could sit down with them and kind of work out what we're going to do. If we think that this is a bust and we don't want to pick up any of those units, then, we'll have that discussion with them.
But we wouldn't kick out anybody who's already in there.
That's my point.
Yeah,
Right, they would still.
the changes to the master lease agreement account for that any leases that are in place would continue to be, those people would be able to stay through their term. So everybody's comfortable with that. So nobody loses housing after 90 days.
Right, and we don't have to pay for empty units that we can. Okay, excellent. Any other questions? Okay, we'll see none. Thank you. Anybody from the public? Care to comment? I see nobody. Then we'll bring it back to us. We'll do a formal motion on this, and we'll start with Councilor Schachter.
I would move that we support the agreement we've been presented for 1 year with 90-day cancellation for the residences.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve item 7. Looking for a second. Mayor Pro Tem Solinsky.
I second.
Any discussion? Keep going.
So the way I was looking at this is, we have basically an opportunity to kind of almost like lease a spare bedroom. You want to have like a place where you can host an invited guest, a consultant. We can, somebody who's going to be here for an extended period of time. Also, I like the idea of being able to bring people in to help augment. Does the city have a program, how like the hospital has like travel nurses? Would we have like a shared law enforcement staff member or something like that? Like, does this give us the opportunity to do that with fire or PD or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tool that the hospital has used, in this very complex, successfully. We don't have a lot of the kinds of travelers I think that you're referring to, but that's not to say that we can't find some. If we could find some travelers in the police department, we would be very interested in that. But you're right. I think we have a lot of flexibility in these, and we can rent them out or let somebody stay overnight or over a week or something and still have the capacity to, rent it to somebody that we hire, bring into town.
I see that as like the biggest benefit to this. I love, being able to recognize the needs of our existing staff, but I see this as like a real kind of valuable tool in the toolbox as we continue to kind of serve the needs of a small rural community with like bigger needs. I think this gives us one more opportunity to be able to do that. So I'm excited.
Thank you. Councilor Townsley.
I just 2 comments. One, I like the fact that we've gone from 2 years to 1 year. We've gone from 15 to 10. I think to me, it makes a lot of sense to do this, to find out if there really is a need. My second comment really doesn't have quite as much to do with this going through, but it makes me wonder, since we put it out to Valley View, we put it out to Rafter, we put it out to the school district, and everybody said, no, we don't have any need to share this with you. If possibly we're starting to get more balance in our, supply and demand out there, and which I think is probably a good thing that we've all been working towards. So I think that's good. I think what you've done with it's good. I support it fully.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter.
Just real quickly, I support it. Because it's a pilot, it's affordable with funds we already have reserved. And I look at the housing that it intersects with so much. Besides employee stability, it intersects with traffic, it intersects with our workforce specifically, it intersects with economic development and recruitment and retention. So the intersection to me is worth every attempt we make. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilor Schmal.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea for now, but I think in the coming up evaluation, we need to take a hard look at whether or not it makes sense to go forward. It's a good pilot program though.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? And, Councilor Smith?
Are the operators at Frida's and 19th Street Diner going to express appreciation for their new customers?
No, I haven't heard anything yet.
Okay, any other comments? Let's see, none. Great. At this point, the motion is to approve item 8. And I'll call for the question. Item 7, sorry.
It passes 7-0.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Yvette. Thanks,
Thank you.
Steve. Moving on, item 8 tonight, authority to sign formal withdrawal from special problem enforcement and response. That's the SPEAR program we're part of. And Chief Dares, please.
Yeah, I asked Chief Darris just to get up and make a couple of comments to clarify a little bit about our participation in this. And then we'll give you guys the opportunity to decide whether you want to withdraw or not.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Good evening, Joseph Daris, Chief of Public Safety. So I'm here to share a couple of remarks and provide you with some information, not to dissuade you or promote our participation in the SPEAR Task Force, more to arm you with the information. So as you may face questions, and there've been a number of meetings where people have come in with comments, many of those were a little bit off base, so I just want to make sure you have the facts, which we can support those facts. I'm also happy to share these comments in Spanish with you tonight, but I'm sure that we don't have any non-English speakers online. Otherwise, they wouldn't probably be here without a translator, but I'm certainly happy to do that as well if need be. So with that, I want to provide you, and I'm going to refer to my notes. I'm going to provide you with some information and background in our community regarding our connection with the SPEAR Task Force. No disrespect whatsoever, and I appreciate comments and feelings from some of the few residents who have come to our community regarding SPEAR and who've commented in our community forum regarding SPEAR. And I absolutely support involvement in our democratic process. That said, as I just mentioned, many of those comments are not based or haven't been based in fact and are largely speculative. I come from a place of fact and can provide demonstrable examples of where we stand here today as a police department. Our city's been part of this task force, this county task force, for longer than 30 years. Formerly known as Trident, at that time it was largely a narcotics-focused investigation and task force. Shortly after I arrived in Glenwood Springs, just over 6 years ago, I saw a trend of drug laws being repealed or reclassified as misdemeanor crimes, and the posture around those crimes had migrated to a different space. Previously, it had been felonies, like Corporal France mentioned earlier about the level of narcotics. Many times those were felonies, and then they moved over to misdemeanor crimes. We had a detective assigned to that task force. We were paying approximately $14,000 a year to be part of that task force and have that officer on the team. Simultaneously, our department had staffing challenges. With the change in drug violation accountability, the fees we paid to be on the team, the staffing issues, I felt it was in our best interest to withdraw from the team. And at that time, you have to understand that was pre-ICE buzzword or any kind of controversy surrounding immigration enforcement at that time. This is prior to a national shift in immigration policies or before a change in the current presidential administration. Since that time, we have not been present at any meetings, participated in any investigations, or any activity with that team since we withdrew. That includes conference calls, board meetings, grant management, etc. Once we withdrew our personnel from that team and we no longer made those payments to the task force, former Lieutenant Bill Kimino was in charge of grant management because that was our commitment at the time. Once we were transitioning out of that, we moved all of the fiduciary business over to the task force exclusively. Shortly afterward, the focus of that team was redirected to focus on major crimes, to include child trafficking, homicide, robbery, organized crime rings, and things of that nature. The team's mission had changed to General Crimes Task Force and was renamed SPEAR. As a 35-year public safety professional, I believe I have the experience, and I'm entrusted by you and our city manager to make the best public safety decisions for our community. I make these decisions every single day concerning the welfare and safety of our community. As I think you would agree, to date, we have been very effective and successful in many of those decisions, if not all. Those decisions are always based on the interests of our community and grounded in best practices, industry standards, and often with prevailing case law, endorsement from organizations like the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and probably the most accepted think tank in the United States for law enforcement engagement called the Police Executive Research Forum. There's not been one single event where any Glenwood Springs police officer has been involved in any immigration enforcement or provided assistance to anyone associated with immigration officials. That includes our time on the Trident Task Force and previous Trident and now currently SPEAR. As a signatory on the MOU, we have access to the team as needed. There have been times when crimes have occurred in our community which have exceeded our capacity to thoroughly investigate those crimes, and we've needed to call the SPEAR team to assist us. I'll refer to those in just a moment. An example is the ability to use SPEAR task force members as they maintain a cross designation role with the United States Marshal's Office. Some of them, but not all those agents. For example, if a homicide occurs here in Glenwood Springs, the suspect flees to, say, another state, they have the ability and resources to track that suspect down out of state and apprehend that suspect and bring him back to justice here in Garfield County. In the last month, as I mentioned previously, we've had to call them out a few times. A domestic violence suspect at a hotel severely assaulted his partner and was holed up in his room, and he was armed with several firearms. We had one detective working that day. They came to assist us with the arrest and a search warrant of that suspect's vehicle. Another domestic violence suspect severely beat his partner. Both of these were women. When confronted, the suspect had essentially a portable narcotics manufacturing lab inside his hotel room over on 6th Street. The amount of narcotics we seized was more than we had staffing to manage and follow up as the sources and clients in that trafficking operation. A while back, you may recall, a Glenwood Springs police officer made a traffic stop on a vehicle and noted the signs of a courier vehicle. He was correct, and we seized $500,000 in cash. Just as a side note, Steve was very quick to run downstairs to see how we could put that to good use here and alleviate some of our budget pressures. But nonetheless, we seized $500,000 in cash. Again, we had SPEAR assist us in the processing and tracking of that vehicle and the funds. Suspects were from Las Vegas area and collected the money in the Midwest US and were traveling through Glenwood Springs. And lastly, we recently became aware of a male suspect. This one's a little unfortunate. I don't want to get into the details because they're sickening. But I'll tell you that this person was from Glenwood Springs. He was raping infant children and toddlers. Homeland Security Investigations, who was explicitly identified in the SPEAR MOU, investigated that crime till its conclusion. Again, I appreciate some of the concerns mentioned about immigration enforcement, but that has never been our experience. They've been a valuable partner to our department and more broadly to our community. And I'm referring to SPEAR, not the ICE team. I want to also reiterate that I embrace my role in taking policy direction from you all. So whether I agree with that policy direction or not is not my place. I execute that policy decision. I don't have a position here one way or the other. I'm just giving you information to make decisions and informed decision, which I think is my responsibility. So whatever you vote, I'm good with that. I just want you to understand, I don't have any heartburn one way or the other. I think I provided you all with a document that looks like this, and it talks about some of the more recent cases that SPEAR's been involved with. I just want to make sure that we're not aligned with immigration enforcement. We talk about HSI. That is an entirely different department than Immigration Customs Enforcement, much like the Capitol Police are different from Secret Service. The argument could be made, well, they could give information to ICE. Well, we could do that today. We could have done it in 1985. We could have done it 6 years ago. That has not changed. I can't speculate on what the task force is doing. I'm told by the sheriff and by their commander that they have not ever had any investigations with Immigration Customs Enforcement, but I don't want to speak for them. I can only speak for what we've done and what we have not done. So with that, if you have any questions about what I just relayed to you or any information in the staff report, I'm happy to answer those.
All right, thank you very much for this information. It's very helpful. Councilor Schachter, we'll start with you.
Couple things. Thank you, Chief, for being here.
Yes, sir.
It's been a touchy subject. Couple things I wanted to ask you to reiterate, and a question. If I heard you correctly, there have been no documented known violations by our force of state guidelines regarding police enforcement. Did I hear that correctly?
It's been an even number of zero. None,
Thank you.
None whatsoever.
And I also hear in your opinion, both Trident and SPEAR in the past have helped increase public safety in our city, one way or another.
Absolutely. They're a force multiplier for resources that we don't necessarily have here, for sure.
So should we withdraw? You've already de facto withdrawn, it sounds like, from SPEAR. Should we de jure, should we cancel the memorandum? Is also my understanding, or would ask you to reinforce it. We will still continue to provide and receive interagency help as needed in the valley, depending on the circumstances. Is that also correct?
100%. Since I graduated the police academy a few days ago, I've always committed to making sure that we provide any resource that we can to another public safety agency, just like I'd expect them to do that for me. And I still stand by that today. Notwithstanding Immigration Customs Enforcement, that's outlawed by Colorado
Right.
law. So I've conformed to those laws, even back where I came from, my previous jurisdiction. So yeah, the answer is we will help agencies as needed, but there are parameters around that defined and codified by Colorado state law.
And there's no indication that you have at this point that past support we've received will not be withdrawn because of the withdrawal of the MOU?
I can tell you that I had a conversation with the sheriff earlier this week about that very topic, and he told me that if this council chooses to withdraw from that MOU, that he will follow up with a letter indicating that they will not be providing any more support because we are not contributors to that task force, nor have we been for the last 3 or 4 years. But this is more of a formal action that you would take and then he would respond with. And again, I don't want to speak for the sheriff. I'm just telling you what he told me directly.
And how would that action affect your force and multiplier and the ability to deal with public safety?
I'd like to think if it's a serious or violent crime, something pretty immediate, like we had an officer involved shooting, a year or so ago, they would respond to help us to secure that immediate scene. I don't want to speculate on how they would do like these hotel investigations. We have a great relationship with every agency in this county, and I've done a lot of work to make sure we sustain that relationship. So at this point, it'd be speculative again, but I can only tell you what he said he would do. But again, immediately, I think they would respond to give us help to make sure that we're safe for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, please.
So in my observation, after living here, for over the years, it appears that we have resources within Glenwood Springs, but very often we call upon neighboring agencies, whether it's the county, whether it's the state, whether it's Carbondale. How is this relationship with Spear different than those relationships?
Because they're not connected to calls for service necessarily. So we have something happen today. Carbondale may not be able to send us people because they only have 2 people working, let's say for an example. They might not be able to respond to that. Or the state patrol, they only have 1 trooper, for example, covering 3 counties or something like that, right, Carl? Something like that. So their resources may be thin. Whereas Spear has, I don't know how many people they have on the team, let's say 8. They can dispatch those people pretty fluidly to come and give us assistance. That plus they have the technology that we don't have. They have the ability to conduct wiretap investigations, or like I talked about, cross designation with the U.S. Marshal's Office. They can go across state lines with those U.S. Marshal deputies to go out and track people down. We don't have the jurisdictional authority to do that unless we were in some kind of fresh pursuit, and there's a whole legal standard for that. But so for those reasons, if we had a very serious crime or someone who's, fleeing the area, we could use them for that as well. Without that, we would have to rely on maybe the FBI or the actual U.S. Marshal's Office. And again, they prioritize those events. And as you can imagine, they're being asked to do a number of things around the country.
So in your professional opinion, in terms of resources, like how valuable of a resource would this relationship be? And how significant is the loss of that resource?
I understand the optics and the political implications around these conversations. So I'm very aware of that and savvy and understand that. At an operational level,
That's all I'm asking.
we would just have to consider, their ability to come in and follow up on these narcotics case, or this cretin that was in our community with these toddlers and infants and things. Like, we don't have the ability to do that. Not that it would just go by the wayside. We might have to tap into the district attorney's office and some of their investigators, or collaborate as a region to deal with something, but they just wouldn't be as readily available as we have had them in the past. And it's not very frequent that we do that. These cases I just gave you examples of, within a month we had 2. We might have 1 or 2 a month, or maybe every couple of months. So it's not very frequent. And in those events, we haven't had any immigration ICE agents come to participate in any of those investigations where we've been involved in, for sure. I want to provide you with some cover and information to understand that if we were doing something that wasn't great, we're going to remove ourselves. And I identified that early on when I didn't think it was in our best interest to continue paying to be on a team that was really serving people in the western half of the county, not so much in Glenwood Springs. So we removed ourselves from that. And here we are again, having a similar conversation. I didn't think it was very, very beneficial. I let you vote, and I wouldn't offer any comments, but I just want you to have the information why and how we've been interacting with them and what we have not been doing, more importantly. Tough place to be in, I get it, but
It is. And, like, would an agency like the CBI or something like that, would that be any more accessible in the instance that you did need a higher level of, like, a more interstate or, cross borders cooperation?
I don't know what their authority is cross-border. Mr. Hanlon might know about that. I'm not sure, but they are another resource for sure. Wiretaps and equipment and things like that, absolutely. The immediacy in their response would be lacking for sure.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Small.
Yeah, from the packet, I wasn't clear that any recommendation was being made other than that staff would support our endorsement of pulling out of SPEAR. But the only motivation for pulling out of SPEAR that I've seen is appearances or alleged appearances of things that people don't necessarily support.
Well, I think they're uneducated about it for sure.
And I find it difficult to support diminishing your abilities because of someone's uneducated opinion. So
I think where we've been in recent media reports have really highlighted an animus between a particular segment of our community and some of the things you've seen presented in the news, the media recently. That has no relationship to us. As you all read that, we had no culpability in any of those communications. So I think there's a group of people who are upset about some of that stuff. That's not Glenwood Springs Police Department. I can only speak to what we do. And so because of those feelings and some potential that ICE was involved or whatever, that has zero to do with us, not a single case. And if we, and I've said since the day I got here, if we make a mistake or one of our officers make that, it's on me to go out and own that mistake and remediate that mistake. But we don't have a single time that anyone can point to. And I've seen some media reports, social media thing about a lady who reported her child missing to the Glenwood Springs Police Department. Next thing you know, their child was abandoned and we took the person. We had, if that occurred, and I don't know that it did, but let's assume that it did. Our department had nothing to do with that. We don't have the authority to take somebody away, hold them on some kind of immigration violation or put them in the county jail. Absolutely not. And again, it's contravenes Colorado law. Well, thank you for your comments. I think we're on the same page.
Thank you. Counselor Townsley.
Two things. Sumner, you brought up something I just want to clarify. You said that we'd pulled out of that agreement, but I don't think we had pulled out of that agreement, if I understand this correctly.
You're correct.
This is information that if we wanted to, we could.
Absolutely.
And you're just giving background information
I
stuff.
just use the word de facto because
Oh, okay.
Chief indicated that in practice, we have not been involved other than our MOU.
Okay.
That's correct.
And
We've
that is
provided no money, we've provided no information, we have not provided an officer. That's what I was referring to.
Oh, okay. I just want to be clear as to where we were on all that.
That's
So
fabulous,
that's
yeah.
good. And then secondly, it's, one of the things we live on I-70, kind of a pretty well-known corridor of people that can do bad things and get into our city, get out of our city quickly. Is it your opinion that by not using every resource available to you, that the threat to public safety in Glenwood would be greater?
Oh, without question. And I refer to that $500,000 seizure that I talked about. So typically narcotics go east and money goes west. So people are traversing I-70, the interstate, taking their narcotics to the eastern seaboard or, Cincinnati or wherever. That money's coming back out to the West Coast, right through our community. We're able to stop them in interdiction that particular day. And they do a lot of interdiction work for a variety of reasons. So I do think, and we've had a number of people prior to my tenure here, who people have come to hide in Glenwood Springs thinking they're not going to be found from some other major metropolitan area for homicides. They've been stopped in cars here. So we do have that element here, which is again, supports my position on the flock safety camera, but that's a different topic. But to your point, that's exactly why these kinds of teams can work that. I mean, if you think about it from the 116 to the 114, that's, I don't know, 2 miles, a mile and a half, whatever it might, we're not going to just jump on these guys and catch them within that 1.5 mile span. That's our jurisdiction there. So we need either state patrol or the task force to come and work those criminals as they're coming through our community.
And would I also be making a correct assumption to know that we're kind of at a prime location if somebody wanted to do something, that they could get into our town and they could get out of our town very quickly?
Clearly, yeah. I mean, the ease of access is certainly there. And then the number of motels and hotels that we have here really provide that respite for them.
And I would also assume, but I would rather get a confirmation from you, if anything ever did occur, let's say we didn't pull out of this agreement, or whether we did or didn't, that if there ever was an occurrence where, there was ICE type of a incident in town, that like we've seen some across the nation, or any that you would let us know about that immediately.
Yeah, the city manager will tell you, even as or recently as this afternoon, when something significant takes place, I immediately have communication, sometimes when I'm on my way to the event. And to include Mr. Hanlon, when we had the officer involved shooting, he was one of the first people I communicated with to make sure our city leadership and our legal counsel is involved early on to help us mitigate any kind of risk or a direction or somewhere that I might be missing, a blind spot that I might have. It hasn't come up yet, but that's exactly the reason why I let them know, and then they communicate that to you however they feel is best.
Okay. Thanks. Appreciate your, there was one other one on there that when I went through that list of crimes that had been, solved or responded to of some people who are trafficking weapons, as far as weapons and drugs. And, that's a pretty significant thing to not have in our community anymore. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Smith.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that you had visited with the sheriff about this possible change.
Yes, sir.
And if I followed that right, got the message that if we withdraw from the agreement, then the level of cooperation, interaction, assistance would reduce.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
How is it that kind of reduction didn't happen when you stopped paying your dues?
Because we were.
What's the difference between then and this?
Yes, sir. I think the answer to that is because we were signatories on the MOU. Now we would not be. And so we're not agreeing to the terms and the language of that MOU. If you chose to pull us out, we would not be party to that. We would not agree to the terms or the language or whatever issue you would have, which are inclusive in that MOU.
And thank you. In that very regard, the kind of the punchline paragraph in the staff memorandum for this item says that someone from the city, I assume you, took to the task force with some suggested changes to bring the agreement in compliance with state law, and that those changes were rejected. Can you tell us more about that, those changes and that interaction?
Yes, sir. So in that conversation, I suggested to the sheriff that we make modifications to the language because there were some specific concerns about some of the terms being used in there. And as I review the document, in there, it doesn't talk about immigration customs enforcement. It talks about Homeland Security investigations. Those are two entirely different things. They all fall under Department of Homeland Security. Their focus is on two different things. Could one cross the other and share information? Absolutely. But to my point where I could call tomorrow and share information with any other law enforcement agency. So to your point about the language, I suggested that we make some modifications to the language inside the MOU itself as it stands today. And that was found to be unfavorable. Another local community suggested that as well, and they were also rejected. And so that was kind of our position. Let's bring this forward to see where we can go with this. And that was not supported.
Appreciate you making that effort. I'm sorry you got rebuffed. That rebuff to me, we're doing questions, sorry. I'll say what I think of that rebuff when the time comes. Okay.
Thank you. And Counselor Weimer.
Is that same sentence that got my attention, Chief? So if the way that this report reads here is that you tried to get the agreement, you tried to bring the agreement into compliance with state law. Those efforts became exhausted. Does that imply that something is out of compliance with state law?
No, so let me take exception with that. And that might be we might have misplaced some of the language there. They are in compliance with state law when you look at the code and what exactly is in that agreement. The
Okay,
implications from many in the communities and some of the sentiment, generally speaking, is that they're violating the law, they being the sheriff's office or the Spear Task Force, because they are cooperating with immigration, customs, and enforcement.
okay.
That's speculation. I can't say whether they are or not. I've not seen where they violated Colorado law. I don't know unless Mr. Handel has a different legal opinion about the language on there that they're violating the law. We are law enforcement officers. We all take an oath to support the Constitution and defend these laws as written, to include Municipal Code of Glenwood Springs. So I take exception to the suggestion that we've been out of compliance and going against state law for however many years. That's not at all my experience, nor have I allowed that, or will I permit that to be the case in our department. You have
No, I was just going to add, I think that I think the language as written, because it doesn't acknowledge, nowhere in the MOU does it acknowledge Colorado state law regarding cooperation with federal authorities around immigration issues, creates the appearance and also creates, I guess, the possibility that there could be information sharing that would violate state statute. And I think, the chief has been fantastic in describing how that has never occurred with the city of Glenwood Springs. And I think our suggested changes were simply to acknowledge that, because, with the state law the way it is, when you're mixing federal agencies and state, I think our feeling is it's important that we just acknowledge that there are limitations to what we can do from the state level. And HSI is a great example of an agency that became the preeminent, especially human trafficking investigatory body. There has been a lot of reassignment of their purpose and use over the last year or so. So I can see where people are concerned about that. And our suggestion was simply that let's acknowledge what the limitations of state law are as part of this MOU. Not that the MOU itself on its face means that there was a violation of state law, but it certainly, creates both that appearance and that possibility to be used that way. Not that we ever have, not that we ever will. So that was why we were suggesting some revisions to the language. The chief was, suggesting some revisions just to acknowledge the state of state law.
So it was not about bringing anything into compliance. It was about acknowledgement.
Yeah, it wasn't about bringing it into compliance. It was about making it clear what the boundaries were as state agencies operating in Colorado in conjunction with federal agencies, and what that level of interaction and sharing can be. Because I can see how a layperson could read this and say, it says you will share information back and forth, you'll deputize, you'll do all these things. And that sounds like full cooperation with the federal government in any way. I mean, our guys know that they have to comply with state law. So that's not occurring for our team whatsoever. But we can see in the language of that agreement where it creates a question in people's minds. Our suggestion was, let's eliminate that question in people's minds.
And the name of SPEAR is Special Problem Enforcement and Response. I understand the desire for these cute, names that resonate and make sense. You've talked a lot about drugs. Is there anything else that would fall under that umbrella of special problem?
Aside from narcotics?
Yeah.
Yes, like I mentioned, homicides,
Okay.
violent crime, robbery, kidnapping, human trafficking, organized crime, related, I wouldn't say conglomerates, but organizations, drug trafficking organizations. Drugs are still part of that, but it is more of a major crimes. Burglary crews that are established and set up in Glenwood Springs. A few years back, we had a Southern Hispanic criminal street gang established in Glenwood Springs over off of Highway 6, and they were trafficking in wanted felons and firearms, selling firearms out of their house. They're doing a number of burglaries on our community. Well, that takes up a lot of resources to investigate something that large, and it really exceeds the capacity of our department to investigate. So for something like that, we would call in SPEAR so they could work that investigation however they chose is being as appropriate.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Selinsky.
So I think we've well established the value of that relationship, but I'm curious, since the language does create, I guess, maybe the potential for, should any member of SPEAR, some of the sworn officers of SPEAR, do something that does violate state statute, with us being signatures on the MOU, does that expose us to any liability, guilt by association, anything like that?
I would defer to Mr. Hanlon for that.
I would say it probably doesn't expose us to liability, but I think it exposes us to a risk in the reputation of our department. And I got to tell you, that's one of the hardest things in this, is that the chief and his department work really hard, do the right thing. Like in all of the cores that we've seen, all the investigations, all the things that you've seen in the media, there's never been an accusation that Glenwood PD actually did anything wrong. And so, from my a little bit personal standpoint, I want to make sure that there's not a reputational hit to this department as a result of the language in that agreement.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that is very much my concern as well. And so now I'm sitting up here weighing, the benefit to the organization and public safety of our community versus the potential hit to reputation. And, I mean, it's a very uncomfy position for me to be in as just a lay person. I have zero expertise in this field. And so, when I see the staff recommendation, is that your staff? Like, I'm just curious who that recommendation came from.
I think,
That came from me.
Yeah,
but that's come through discussions, right? With the
exactly,
city attorney.
exactly. And so that's like, I'm just trying to get a sense for how detrimental a change of relationship could potentially be to the community versus the optics, like where are we at with like the reality of the situation versus.
I'd like to think I have the
perceptual.
confidence in those decisions. When we need them, we call them when it's appropriate, like some of the examples I gave you. If their conduct and behavior is outside the limits of the law or outside of that's on them entirely, and I can't speak to them. They'd have to account for that. Where our department is concerned, I'd like to think I've done a pretty good job about seeing a problem, a little visionary to see it coming 3 years ago before ICE was a problem. But what we were contributing and what our benefit was as a community. And so those public safety decisions I was talking about, we make them every day. And at the time I thought it was beneficial to sign that MOU. And at the time I had the authority to do that in the best interest of our community safety. And we do those so often, I can't bring every one of those to you. Now it became a much bigger deal. And so we're here today. So I don't want to make things difficult. And this conversation's gone on a while. And I didn't come here with these comments to make it difficult on you. I just wanted to arm you with information to make an informed decision. And whatever that decision is, I'm happy to execute. And I don't think it'll damage my relationship with the sheriff professionally whatsoever, or any of these other communities we have around us.
Thank you. Councilor Schachter.
This would be one more question. That'd be for the chief and Carl. I'm looking at the MOU agreement, section 10.9. It talks about, and I'm wondering, and again, I'm a lay person and the public is definitely lay people. How does this, I understand that chief and his officers to a certain degree have no total control over what other cooperating officers might do, either in the heat of the moment or an enforcement act or anything. 10.9, help me. I'm looking at, it says, unless I'm reading it wrong, any task force officer that's involved in a cooperative event in a local jurisdiction is subject to the local jurisdiction's rules, which to me means, at least to my layperson, says, look, if you're a Spear cooperating agency helping Glenwood Springs, and Glenwood Springs does not allow any violations of state law, that's the umbrella that controls your behavior. Am I reading that wrong, Carl?
I mean, I think you're reading it generally correctly. I think that, I think one of the struggles with an MOU like this is the difference between language and operational reality, right? By and large, everybody who's going to be operating in the city of Glenwood Springs are officers that are certified through our state programs. They're going to be operating underneath the same set of rules and laws that we all do, right? So in that regard, everybody should be on the same page and operating in the same way. I think this is a great example, though, of where it's very difficult. This is a very lengthy MOU. It's got a lot of broad language in it in places. And that's where I think that it's creating the discomfort in the community. And there again, like I said, chief operationally has made, great decisions. Our guys have made great decisions. So yeah, I think that's where, and I think the language that is probably more problematic for people are when kind of the expansive language around cooperation and shared databases and things like that, which have not come to pass. And so this is much broader than what the operational realities are. And I think probably in a perfect world, it would be a little more narrowly focused to how operations on the ground actually occur. than it is, but yeah.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski.
Sorry, one more question. I apologize if this is in the MOU and I didn't see it, but what are the other, I mean, is Carbondale part of Spear?
They are not. They were at one time, but they have not been for several years.
And they've pulled out, so all the other cooperating communities would be to the west of us, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Or-
you.
Can I qualify that, please?
Please.
For signatories. There are communities in our western region here that do not have officers on that task force. They can't afford it. They can't afford the fees and whatever that might be. But they have been signatories on that or attend the meetings or what have you. We've just not been one of those.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that is, I think Carbondale may be a signatory, but not a participating member. Is
Yes.
that-
Yes, sir.
So I think everybody who's, not all the signatures are filled in on this. I believe there is a copy the sheriff's office has. It has all of the signatures on it. But I think there are a number of agencies that are in a similar position to what ours is, that they don't pay to have officers on the task force, but are signatories to this MOU.
And that may change.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I do know it's at least a discussion in Carbondale around this as well.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional questions? See none. So I heard a lot of things tonight, a lot of answers, a lot of good questions. And I just want to confirm. Just because the Homeland Security is mentioned in this MOU, that does not mean we're violating state statute.
It does not. It certainly creates an opportunity, you could argue, and
Right.
it certainly, I think sometimes I worry a little bit, and something we talked about is the feds can be the feds, whether before or now, they always can be a little heavy-handed. Could they lean on us, and point to this as to why we needed to cooperate with them? I think we would always, rely back to state law and just say we can't. But there again, it's one of the reasons why we've talked about, in a perfect world, I would love to see some language in here that acknowledges the limitations of Colorado state agencies and departments with the level of cooperation they can have and on the types of subjects they can have with the federal agencies that are also signatories.
Okay, and at this point, we're not aware that the feds have asked certain things.
We are not aware, and I don't want to speak out of turn for chief, we're not aware that we have ever been asked, and that gets down to, I mean, you can talk about how we deal with records requests.
Oh,
from,
certainly.
yeah.
So we've received records requests from immigration ICE because they've had in this particular case, they had a target or somebody of interest in the Texas area, state of Texas. They wanted to find out some background information about that we retained. He had previously been in Glenwood Springs and had some kind of contact with law enforcement, and we declined that request. Again, it's in contravention to Colorado state law. So we referred them back to the CORA process. Like we would anybody, any one of you asked about that person, we'd refer you to the CORA. And on that particular event, I had conferred with our legal team to make sure I was not out of bounds there and I was right. So whenever that comes in with anything to do with them, we refer them to whatever the proper channel may be, but we've not supplied them with information or any other activity outside of what the Colorado statute provides.
So this kind of opens a completely different avenue. I mean, any of these records can be obtained through CORA.
Some of them are subject to CORA, some of them are subject to the Colorado Criminal Justice Records Act, JRA. There are parameters around what we can disclose to anybody, and we treat a request from a federal agency on exactly like we would a request from a person off the street who filled out the form. Right.
Same thing.
Same thing. Doesn't mean that there are limitations on what they can get access to.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for all your information, and thanks for everybody chiming in. Anybody from the public here that would like to speak up?
Let me just thank you all for giving me the opportunity to at least explain kind of where we're at and understand the context of what's been going on. I do appreciate that and your patience with this whole messy situation we found ourselves in over the last couple months, but thank you all.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I see none. We'll close the public portion. I'll bring it back to council. Item 8 tonight. We should take an action. So. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I move The city council will authorize appropriate city staff to sign formal withdrawal from the Special Problem Enforcement and Response Task Force, also known as SPEAR. Glad to explain my thoughts behind that when the time comes.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to withdraw. Can I get a second? Okay. Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. Councilor Schachter?
I will second. Part of our process is to get things out there for discussion. This will get it out for discussion.
Okay, sounds good. Motion and a second to withdraw, and I assume Councilor Smith, you want to go first?
I can go whatever order you like.
Let's go.
This is an appropriate action for a string of reasons. But one of the reasons, among those reasons, is not anything reflecting on the Glenwood Springs Police Department. Nothing about this conversation, nothing about this motion in particular, for which I'll take responsibility, implies or fears or worries about misbehavior by the police department in any fashion, including in relation to city law regarding immigration cooperation. This is an exemplary department, and it's specifically because of that and the history and the reputation that accompanies that good behavior, that it's important that we not taint that image, reputation, or impression to anyone by association with others who may not be up to such standards. The fact that what seemed like reasonable, the second reason is the fact that what seemed like reasonable suggestions to amend the agreement to make it more acceptable to that high standard of behavior were rebuffed is first suspect to me on the part of those doing the rebuffing that maybe something is afoot, and whether it is or not, whether we have facts or not, that impression is strengthened by that reluctance to cooperate. In the current climate, I think based in facts that we've seen from other communities and particularly larger cities, the barrier between Homeland Security and Immigrations and Customs Enforcement is a very thin barrier, if not a sieve. I have no confidence that information shared in the best of intentions with Homeland Security will not end up in ICE. Just because of the way these agencies have been operating and the way that their leadership have been speaking in public in the last year or so. It's important to keep a distance from that behavior again, in order to affirm our good behavior, our police department's good behavior, and to affirm the public's confidence, this community's confidence in that behavior. Whatever other agencies elsewhere might think about it, our citizens' confidence in that behavior is to be upheld. That atmosphere may change. That relationship between, say, Homeland Security and ICE may change. The behavior of ICE may change. That would present possibly an opportunity for this city council to rejoin. It may be that the SPEAR task force would agree to some changes of clarification in the agreement. And that might be an opportunity to rejoin. This can be undone if circumstances improve. Circumstances right now are bad. This is a good agreement from which to withdraw in honor of the police department and in support and in response to concerns from our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Solinsky.
Yeah, I'm very aware of how valuable cooperation is and collaboration with all the agencies in our community and surrounding communities, and the force multiplier that you mentioned. Like, I think that is pretty critical to safety of our community. The only reason I would support this is to protect the reputation and the integrity of our local department. And I'm very concerned with the fact that, to Counselor Smith's point, it was a very reasonable request to just modify the language to make it more clear, the intent and the guidelines and the barriers, you know, the line that will not be crossed. And the fact that that wasn't honored, it just doesn't sit well. And I'm struggling with that because I hate to limit resources of our local law enforcement. And I know how valuable that is, but I also hate to expose really, really good people doing really good work to unnecessary, I guess, risk and judgment. And so I'm struggling with that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Counselor Townsley.
Couple things. You know, one of the things that we're all acutely aware of up here is the fact that our police department is fairly understaffed. You know, we've talked time and time again about the fact we can't hire people. We've tried to hire people. The people are not there. They can't afford to live here. And I'm sure Carbondale is under the same gun. Silt, Newcastle, all the towns, the people that are signatories towards this. So if we're doing something just for the appearance of doing it, is that really a benefit to our citizens when there's been no indication whatsoever? And I agree with Counselor Smith that I wouldn't trust the current federal agencies further than I could throw them. But, you know, when we're talking about drugs, guns, fentanyl showing up in our schools, trafficking, domestic abuse of minors, then I think we're, you know, to go, let's do something that's, you know, going to protect a reputation or do this. I'm more interested in making sure that the citizens of Glenwood are not subject to, you know, some of these things that are out there. I mean, these are concrete things that are happening day in, day out. There's been no indication that I can see that we've taken part in any sort of ICE information sharing. I do trust the people that we've got on staff. And so to get rid of something that's a tool when we're totally understaffed to start with just does not make sense to me.
Thank you. Counselor Schachter.
This, like our nation, is kind of tearing at all of us. I have several concerns before I make a decision. One is we always wrestle with who are we hearing from in public meetings. So we've had a loud outcry by a relatively proportionally small number of people. I don't know if that represents local sentiment. I know national sentiment is a whole different issue.
Yeah.
I don't know. So one of the dilemmas of being up here, it is very hard to tell sentiment. Number two, we're, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, we are charged with a huge issue of providing as much public safety umbrella as we can. That overrides a lot of things that are going on in other communities that aren't here. That's a tough one because at least I'm hearing from the chief that there is a chance, a possible probability, maybe a high one, that our ability for public safety will be diminished by some factor not to be known. I am concerned also with the fact that other agencies involved with this have less than a stellar reputation than our force by action, by deed, by word. And I'm also concerned that I'm hearing an issue that sounds a little bit like, well, quid pro quo, if you will. Even though you've withdrawn in practice, the symbolic issue of ending the MOA will end cooperation that's existed, even though you haven't participated. That bothers me, which is also related to other reputations. So it makes it hard for me to make that decision. And should I not support the motion? Should we continue with the MOA? I'm not sure how we would express it, but I would expect that our chief of public safety, as well as our city manager, would inform us immediately and recommend withdrawal from the MOA should they be aware of any state law violation by the Spear Task Force and or any finally adjudicated legal action against the head of the Spear that I believe might be pending. Those are some of my concerns. I'm still dizzy, if you will, but those are some of the things I wanted to comment on.
Okay, thank you.
Accused of being dis-
Counselor Small.
Should this motion fail, I'll provide another one. I can't support the existing motion. I'm not aware of any substantiated claims of our police department violating any state laws. And I feel it's a waste of time to be fretting over unsubstantiated allegations of potential violations. And I think it's a waste of time. And I'll call it lawyers' irrational exuberance that adding a statement into a statement about following state laws that are already being followed is going to have any effect on anything except making somebody feel good about the statement being there.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
You know, as I sit here and contemplate this, when you look at the crimes that have been resolved through this cooperation, we are addressing our most vulnerable population. And I think that that's something that we need to be aware of, in that the decisions we make, we're making them from a position of pretty significant privilege. And it feels good to do the things that make a political statement, but what could be the potential ramifications of that? And I just am acutely aware of the weight of the decisions that I make up here and how they could unfairly impact others.
Thank you. Any other comments? Counselor Weimer.
If I may, just one more question for Chief. Reading through the MOU, it talks about the task force officers,
Yes, sir.
right? Who are these people, literally? Are they being borrowed from local agencies, and for a shift or whatnot, they're wearing the cap of Spear? Is that, or who are they?
So just like when we had our detective on there, he would have been a task force officer. So he's a Glenwood officer. We're called the parent agency,
Yeah,
but now he's assigned to that task force for 3-4 years or into perpetuity.
okay.
So currently, City of Rifle has an officer, a few, I don't know what they have, but they have somebody attached to that team.
Yep,
The sheriff's office carries the bulk of the personnel on that team. I don't know what that number is, but it's sizable.
okay.
And then, so it's the sheriff's office, Rifle, and that's it. And then whatever HSI, I don't know what they contribute to that team.
So these are some of the sheriff's deputies that have been lent out to Spear,
They're
or
permanently assigned. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
these are
They're
permanent
permanently assigned to
assignments.
there. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Unless they get promoted or something, they come back to the road, and then the sheriff would reassign another person in their place. But it's a permanent assignment. It's not ancillary or this week you're in and next week he's in. It's a permanent assignment.
and those task force officers, they still live in this community, or have they been relocated? You know what I'm trying to understand who these people are, this very scary Spear, this very scary front that we put sometimes on some of these conversations. Who are these? I don't need names, I don't need that deep, but like, who are these people? When you call Spear, who's showing up to help?
It's largely the sheriff's department and maybe not 1 or 2 officers that are assigned from the City of Rifle to that task force. I don't know where they live. I'm going to presume that they're local, in Garfield County somewhere.
Are these DEA feds that have been assigned to the area, or other federal agents that have been assigned to the area?
Not that I'm aware of. When we were part of that team and I was participating in those meetings, they had the supervising agent from DEA as the DEA representative to that task force.
Okay.
So he would come in and share information or help us with wiretaps or funding or whatever. HSI, I've been to only a few meetings when they've had a representative there, and they were there to talk about this child sexual assault case I talked about, those kinds of things. I did not see, and although I don't know if they weren't there, anybody that was immigration customs enforcement. There were some people at the table I wouldn't recognize, but largely it is run through the sheriff's department and staffed by a lot of people from the sheriff's office.
Yep.
And one or two other local police departments.
Who is the Spear Task Force commander?
Currently, that is Sergeant Jesse Burris from the sheriff's office. Previously, just recently, that changed, and very previously for many years, it was Sergeant Mike Tyler from the Rifle Police Department.
And who does the commander report to?
To the board of directors. And you're on the board of directors if you're one of the people who are contributing to that task force, either in funding or personnel. So at the time I was on that board because we had an officer attached to that and we were paying money to be there. Chief Funston from Rifle was on that board and Sheriff Lou Valerio. Now, several other chiefs would come to meetings, but they weren't part of that board of directors because they weren't contributing anything in the form of financially or personnel.
And then what is I feel like I'm a lawyer. I'm on a little bit of a roll here. Who does the board, is there a connection between the board and any federal agency as far as reporting, responsibilities, funding? Like how does that work?
I think my short answer is no, if I understand your question properly. Funding, they are funded through a thing called HIDTA, HIDTA, which is the organization that funds large task forces, criminal investigations, high intensity drug trafficking areas, what that
Yep.
stands for.
Yeah.
That comes through Department of Justice. So we got grant funding, and I don't recall what that number was, but let's just say $100,000 a year. So that provides money to lease vehicles, cell phones, buy money for informants. We have to pay them for information.
Yep.
A lot of different things. So in that way, there was some financial through the federal government there. As I mentioned previously, through DEA or maybe another organization, if we had a large organization that exceeded our capability or capacity to fund that, we could go to DEA and say, hey, we're going to go buy 100 pounds of whatever. We need $1 million. They're the bigger agency that could fund that. So in that way, federal government could be involved, or FBI. But FBI was never really part of that. I just know that DEA was at that table.
These Spear officers, do they have access to technology or databases that they would not have otherwise?
I don't know if I can answer that one way or the other because I don't know.
Okay.
And two, the guys that are the agents that are assigned to, that are cross-designated as U.S. Marshals, they may, but I don't know. I've never heard that they do, but I don't know what they do or how they do it.
So the operating model of Spear is that Garfield County at one point applied for DOJ grant funding that allows for the operation of this task force. The task force is designated through a board of directors that is largely composed of the signatories, right, on this memorandum of understanding. We reassign local officers to be permanently a part of this task force, reporting to the task force commander, who is a sheriff's sergeant, right?
Yes.
Funding for equipment, vehicles, et cetera, is granted from the Department of Justice, right? And they serve as a rover on the baseball field. They go to where they need to go to be able to help out where they need to help out.
Exactly correct. And I would add that we supplemented, or the contributing agency would supplement that funding through that $14,000 that I talked about. So we would contribute that 14 grand as part of their overall operating expense.
Why is there an HSI signature on this MOU?
Because I think I mentioned that they were part of, like DEA was part of that overall a contributing agency. So DEA was, I mentioned DEA was there. The State Patrol had a representative there, and you'll notice they declined to sign the MOU for, I can't speculate. So there's a number of people that were there who are still there, who are like HSI or DEA. And I don't know if DEA is still part of that or not.
Okay.
I've been away from that for several years now. So I don't know exactly where they are up to date.
Okay. So HSI is a contributing agency. to this MOU, what specifically does that allow them to do or have access to?
Well, I'll point to this, again, I call him a cretin, this suspect that was involved in these child trafficking, child sexual assaults, those kinds of things. They're largely involved in pornographic, investigations across computers, across state lines, those kind of, they have a far broader reach and authority than anybody locally would have. And we wouldn't have had access to that individual if had it not been for them, because we just don't have, it's called an ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children. We don't have access to that. And those are nodes throughout the country that they work with to identify some of these people.
Chief, thank you.
Yes,
Your
sir.
answers have solidified my position on this, and I will not be in support of the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council Schachter.
Sorry it's taking so long. Two more questions. One, please, for Chief, and one for Steve. I don't like putting you on the spot, but I will. If this motion carried and the intent of Sheriff Valerio was not to supply spear support for Glenwood Springs, if that's what I understood, in your opinion, I already heard a diminishment of overall public safety. Are our sworn officers in any greater risk?
I would suggest probably not, but I will say only from the unknown. You know, if we get a barricade, what we had, as you recall, a couple years ago over on Riverview Street, somebody was shooting at our officers. So, I mean, I can't predict that, but generally speaking, I don't know what I don't know. And I'd say probably not. But that day, when that dark day comes, and I tell our officers all the time, the devil will visit you at some point in your career. We need to be able to deal with that problem. And I think the sheriff in spirit is absolutely poised and has demonstrated his willingness to come and help us, for sure. It's just the day-to-day activities and things that may not necessarily be there when we call them, because they got other things to do and for the reasons we already explained.
Thank you. One more question, please, Steve. This is unusual. Maybe we're talking about semantics, but it says staff is supportive of withdrawing from SPEAR due to the optics. Is that different, or how does that differ from staff recommends withdrawal, which is normally not the language, I understand, but this is kind of an unusual situation.
It doesn't.
Okay. So I could substitute supportive and say staff recommends withdrawal from the MOU.
Yes,
And staff is whom?
that recommendation comes from me.
Thank you. You don't
I
make-
will add, though, it's my understanding anyway, that your chief of public safety and your attorney both agree with that.
Yes, that decision is made in collaboration. I mean, Steve's the final say on those things. So we've had those conversations.
That helps immensely. Thank you very much.
Council Townsley.
I thought I had two questions, but now I've got three. And this is, it's not a silly question because we see it out there. Are you aware, Chief, of anybody on the task force that operates anywhere, anyhow, that is masked?
No, I've never seen that. But again, we've never worked around these ICE agents that you see on TV, so I don't know. But I've not seen that here.
Nothing you've ever seen would lend you to believe that we've got people out there wearing masks that are enforcing. Okay.
No, sir.
The second question I've got is if we were participating under a fairly small amount of money and that allowed you to be on a board of directors where you would see and hear a lot more, is that something that we should revisit if we do not pull out of this agreement?
You know, I made a business decision because I thought we were contributing quite a bit in the way of staff, a person, an officer, and the money. And I didn't see the return because most of those crimes that they're focused on don't occur in Glenwood Springs. I wanted to be poised to be able to use that team, utilize them when we needed to. We needed to ring that bell. I needed them to come. And if that cost us 14,000 plus salary and benefits, I was good with that. But since the laws have changed and everything has really kind of evolved to a place where we are right now, I just thought it was in the best interest of our community to reassign that officer back here to our community, focus on community, focus on crimes here locally. Did I answer your question?
I guess, but I'm like, if there's, one of the questions that you'd have on something like this is we're part of something that's maybe a little outside of our control. Is it better to be in a position where it's happening even at a small cost?
If we were going to contribute in the way that we had been, I would certainly want to have a presence on that board so we could have some influence about what was going on.
So is there a difference between the small amount of money that you were contributing versus contributing a staff member that we probably don't have available from a staffing standpoint?
Yeah, the money necessarily wasn't the issue because of the certain amount of money. It was the staff person, particularly now, the staffing challenges we've had over the years. I could use him. He's better utilized back here in our community more locally.
Okay. And then my third question that just came up, as I think I understood this, was that the three of you had gotten together and think that we should withdraw from this agreement. My question is why? What purpose does that serve other than optics?
I think that the two reasons we got into this agreement were, number one, there's information that flows through here. And number two, there are cases where we would need to hand this off to somebody like Spear. I don't think that the information that we get through this is enough to make a difference. I think that we will still get cooperation from our local agents. You guys have all sat up here and said how much you don't trust HSI, you don't trust ICE. People in this agreement can be doing bad things. Things in this agreement could be illegal if we did them, which we're not, which is the point that we're trying to make here. So I feel like we don't think the juice is worth the squeeze on this one.
Did I hear from the other two people that were involved in that decision?
I'd concur. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of talked about it. I think, words matter in agreements like this. And I think, something we talked about was that if the agreement were reformed to make it more in line with what state law requires, that would be a significant change and would be important and potentially address some of the information sharing paragraphs in here that cause a lot of discomfort because they do open up possibilities. I think the last one for me is that because part of this funding comes from DOJ, and I know what the requirements of DOJ are on their grant funding now, which is an absolute cooperation on immigration services, that because of all of those reasons, it's incredibly important to protect our team by a different set of language in the agreement. So that's why we were all on, for me, why I was on the same page along with these guys on that the risks exceed the benefits. And it's not a big leap other than a political one to reform this agreement. And I think there are a number of other communities that are in the same position we are about wanting to see some changes.
I would finish a comment then, that's a little different, I think, than the information that I thought I was hearing originally. When we have chief of public safety, our city attorney, and our city manager all going, we're fairly well informed. We all three are recommending that we pull out of this at this point. That gives me a whole different feel for what we're talking about here. I personally, anything we can do to make our city safer, I'm in favor of. I'm also not in favor of doing something that goes against people who know a whole lot more about this than I do. So if that is the case, then I would support it.
Thank you. Councilor Schmal.
Was council advised or involved in the original signing the MOU on the Spear agreement, on the Spear member MOU?
I think that it lived for about 30 years. And so what you see before you, what I signed was an addendum to what had been previously existing for so many years. The climate had changed in that period of time. So no, they typically aren't involved in those kinds of things. Many times I signed things like this all the time, to the point I'd be knocking on your door every day, or Steve's door, or the city attorney's door. And so for a long time, I've been entrusted to make decisions, and I think they've worked out very well for us. In this particular case, things changed, and now here we are having this lengthy conversation about a decision I made. So moving forward, understand, I couldn't see what I didn't know was going to be in front of us, certainly 3 years ago. So now here we are. And so the short answer to your question is no, and that's not typically what would happen.
And so I guess I'm questioning why council needs to endorse or promote one way or the other, whether we continue in this.
Because ultimately you are the responsible policymaking body. And this is one of those issues that is of great import to your community. And frankly, it's a decision that should be made by you guys as the elected officials for this community.
Any more comments? Okay, I'll give my 2 cents, and it's not much, but we heard everything tonight from your end, from our end. and it all made sense until it didn't, and then it made sense again. And I think the pinnacle to all of this is you three guys being in agreement with each other, going, yeah, we're ready to move on. Points by Councillor Smith, the climate may change, absolutely. And maybe if the climate change, we can join it again, or we can hope for a different spear or a new name, a new fancy name, as has been pointed out. I believe in collaboration. I believe in working together. I believe in pooling your resources, especially where we are nowadays with everybody fighting to hire police officers. That's tough. And I do hope that even though we may get out of this, that you will still call upon help and help will show up. You said hopefully they will.
I believe they will. I have the kind of relationship with our partners that will support that. Absolutely. It's more of a formality. And if I just might end with this, I just want to make sure you guys understood, like I prefaced this conversation with, I wanted to give you information
Right.
and understand where we've been, because we've been attacked and we haven't been really able to defend ourselves. And a lot of times information was coming from people who live outside of our community and had opinions about what's going on, and it was not factual and it was speculative. That was
Right.
that was the purpose behind me sharing this with you.
Well, and I thank you for that, but also I think what was really helpful is hearing that we tried to alter it and adjust it and make it more palatable for everybody, with what's going on outside of our four walls here, and that was denied or rebuffed or whatever word you used. And so, well, anyway, I think I'm at the point to make a decision. So with that, I will call for the question.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add
Yeah.
one thing real quickly? If I thought that we were increasing the risk of our officers getting hurt, I would never make this recommendation. I
know.
don't care if Lou Valerio writes a letter or not. I believe that Chief Darris has enough relationship with enough law enforcement agencies in this area that we will take care of business when we need to take care of business. I think that is to his great credit. And if we didn't have that relationship, then I absolutely would not support anything that would put our officers at more risk.
Or our citizens and the entire city of Glenwood Springs. Now I get it. I understand. So thank you for all that. Thank you for all your time and information, and I will call for the question. Oh, just a reminder, the motion is to withdraw, and so is the second. So I'll call for the question.
Yes, Councillor Townsley. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Yes, Mayor Dame. Yes, Councillor Weimer. No, Councillor Schmal. Yes, Councillor Smith. Yes, Councillor Schachter. It passes 6-1.
Thank you, Ryan. Again, thank you, all of you, for being here and explaining all this. This was not easy and very helpful to hear everything, though. And hopefully we did the right thing. Please keep us informed of what's going on out there. So, okay, keep on trucking. Number 9, ordinance 2026-08, an ordinance of City of Glenwood Springs, amending the Glenwood Springs Municipal Code regarding the regulation and permitting of exterior lighting and signage. Planning file CDA 000027-2026.
Okay,
Emery,
Emery
please.
Ellington, Community Development Department. I'll be sharing the screen. Okay, so tonight, this item is a code amendment and it deals with lighting and signage. So it's a code text amendment. And so it has gone to Planning and Zoning Commission for recommendation at their March meeting. And then just a little background, this started, Planning and Zoning Commission had a joint session with you all in November, and lighting was one of the topics and illumination that came up. And so in January, staff, we had a work session with Planning and Zoning Commission talking about, our sign code and then also our lighting standards. And then Planning and Zoning Commission gave some directive to staff to come back with some suggested changes, and then also compare how our ordinances stack up against some neighboring communities. And so then we took that back to Planning and Zoning Commission in March. And then what is on the docket tonight is a reflection of what came from that conversation. And so really after looking at our, again, these are two sections of code, exterior lighting and signs. And after looking at that, staff identified 3 specific changes in code that we could add. And then we also looked at 4 different communities, Breckenridge, here in Colorado and Nucla, and then also Moab and then Flagstaff. And the reason those were picked as comparison communities were because they're dark sky communities. And what that is Dark Sky is an international organization that promotes lighting standards to reduce light pollution. So it's really similar to like Tree City USA. It's you volunteer to join, you do have to pay. But the idea is that they encourage certain things and then cities can adopt model ordinances to achieve those goals. So here's just some nighttime photos of those, a couple of those places, including Glenwood. Okay, and then just again, so a variety of communities, you have Nucla on one end of size, and then also Flagstaff is a pretty sizable community, almost 100,000 people. So just a variety of communities. Glenwood's about in the middle, although we are the densest community of the comparison communities. Like I talked about, Dark Sky International, so those communities are dark sky communities, and so they have different classifications that you can obtain through their program. And then a lot of times communities, whether they're an official dark sky community or not, they'll use the principles for outdoor lighting. So the idea is that it's useful, it's targeted, low level, controlled, which would be like timers, and then warm colored. And so that refers to a temperature of a light, which is one of the code changes we're looking at. And so any light source, whether you're inside or outside, can be considered anything from warm to cold, and how that's measured is Kelvins. So 2000 Kelvin would be considered a warm light, 10,000 Kelvin would be considered a cold light. And why that's important to light pollution is when light is on that bluer end of the spectrum, the way your eyes see it is it's brighter, and then it also scatters a little more, contributes a little more to light glow. And so Dark Sky International, and you'll see this reflected in the comparison community standards, they recommend 3000 or less. Currently, City Glenwood Springs, we don't regulate color temperature of lights at all. It's not in our code. And so the recommendation on this is to add it where all fixtures, outdoor fixtures, would need to be 3000 kelvins or less. And the way that's reviewed is anytime you have a fixture lighting spec, it's listed. A lot of times lighting fixtures you can pick. It'll be like, here we have this light bulb. You can have it at 3000 Kelvin, 4000, 5000, and you order it. So that's how that works. So that's the first recommended change. And then the second item is gas station canopy lighting. And so, we were talking a lot about public safety tonight. It's important that you see where you are. And then you can also have excessive lighting beyond what you need to feel safe. And so gas stations and communities can sometimes be a source of excessive lighting. And so you can't regulate light if you can't measure it. And the way you measure light mostly is using lumens and foot candles. The rest of the world uses what's called lux and has to do with meters. Basically, your source is measured in lumens, and that measures how bright a light is. And then foot candles is measuring that degree of illumination. So this image, I think, illustrates it pretty well. And so the way you measure it is for gas station canopies, and this is what a lighting plan looks like. And so you have here would be your lighting source, and then these are all the foot candle values. So you can see as you get farther away from this light source, those values go down. And so the way this is regulated in Glenwood, we have a minimum of 5 foot candles for safety, and then a maximum of 25. Comparison communities have different, between 15 and 20. I would like to point out Flagstaff is a little different. That's because the way they measure lighting is across the entire property and not per fixture. But in general, recommendation is basically between 15 and 25 from Dark Sky International. And so just in interest of finding, maybe small ways we can reduce light, staff is recommending just to reduce that to 20. And when this would get reviewed is, let's say a gas station comes in for remodeling and they're going to do new lighting on their canopy. They'd have to provide a lighting plan. We would review that, make sure that underneath the canopy, all the values like you see here would be less than 20. So that's the second recommendation. And here would be the language. And then the third one, so this is in sign code, but it still does relate to illumination and lighting, is an illuminated signage curfew. And so You can have an illuminated sign in Glenwood, and whether that's internal, like these ones, where the lighting source is inside the light, or external, where you have like an exterior light shining down on a sign, you can have those. And then currently the way it's regulated is if you are within 300 feet of a residential zoning district, you have to turn that sign off by 10 p.m. or 1 hour later than business. And so that's what we have on the books right now. And then a lot of other communities, they actually do it across the board. So citywide, again, and a lot of times it's tied to if you close your business. So if you're a bar that's open until 3 a.m., you can shut your sign off at 4 a.m. If you're a hotel that you're basically open all the time, you'd have it on all the time. But if you're, a retail shop that closes at 6, you'd have to shut off your light at 7. So that's the way it works. And again, we already have it here in Glenwood. So everywhere in yellow is within 300 feet of a residential zoning district. So all of those signs need to be turned off by 10. And so if this were to be changed and we were to make it across the board, it would be all the areas that aren't yellow that would then be subject to that. And then another important thing, which again, so this is the language as is being considered tonight. Planning and Zoning Commission did include in their recommendation that all illuminated signs in Glenwood Springs comply with this rule by January 1st, 2022, 32. So they have 5 years, where initially the staff recommendation would be that would have just been for new signs going forward. So that is a little bit different. That is what is before you tonight. So again, if you have an illuminated sign in Glenwood, by January 1st, 2032, you'd have to start turning it off, which if you didn't maybe install your sign originally with a switch or a timer, that would be something you'd have to do. So that's the third recommendation. And I'll just go through the criteria for text amendments to code. So there's 5 of them. Main point is that it's consistent with comprehensive plan, city policies, and doesn't conflict with code and responds to community concerns and needs. And so the first one is it's consistent with comprehensive plan goals. We call out specifically reducing light pollution, establishing a dark sky ordinance, and then also it shows up in the energy and climate action plan for energy efficiency. If a light's off, it's not using electricity. So using it wisely when it's needed. And so that's number 1. Doesn't conflict with code. We already regulate signage and lighting. So that's already there. As necessary to address a demonstrated community need. And so these are really small steps to decrease light pollution. I mean, it's really reducing it. You have a lot of different sources across lots of different places. These are just kind of small steps that we could take to reduce that amount. Number 4, necessary to respond to changes in conditions or policy. Color temperature was left out of the original ordinance. And then again, it's kind of as the community has grown, it's become more of a concern. So these are just efforts to address that. And then 5, just consistent with general purpose and intent of the code. These are modifications to existing regulations. We already have these in code. So the options for tonight, one would be to approve the items with findings and conditions. If you have additional conditions, you can certainly add those. Second would be to deny the code amendment. And then the third would be to continue. So again.
Thank you. Thank you for all the info and lighting. Any questions to Emery? Councilor Schmal.
Emery, under this revised code, would Ryan have to change out his lights on Sixth Plaza again?
Under the current.
We would have to look at what the color temperature on those lighting fixtures was. So the idea is that, yeah, going forward, and that would include, street lighting, park lighting, we'd try to observe that color temperature limit.
So before I'm prepared to act on this, I'd like to know the answer to that question.
Well, yes.
I
mean, as that's replaced, because this is right now, it's not effective. We don't regulate color temperature at all. You could have any color temperature bulb you want.
But you regulate the amount of light that's produced.
Correct. Yeah, but that's not what's subject to these code amendments. So I'll go back. So color temperature is not how bright something is. It's how bright your eye perceives it to be. But you could have the same lumen output for all 3 of these lights. Could be exactly the same, but it's going to look different. So as far as how this code amendment relates to the lighting on Sixth Street, as those are replaced, it would observe the color temperature.
By 2032, it definitely would require replacement.
So the 2032 would only be for illuminated signs. This would be effective
That's
immediately.
what I was trying to get at. It's only for illuminated signs.
Is
So
the
it's
2032
not,
correct?
it's only partially controlling light pollution, which is the goal to begin with, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, these are really limited. We kind of looked at code, and without a specific directive, you know, this was kind of things that we identified as, well, these are small fixes that could improve it. I mean, if this is a conversation that we'd like to continue, maybe we add more, could certainly do that. So that's, yeah. And then Planning and Zoning Commission had added the 2032 cutoff for the illuminated signs. So again, a lot of this is kind of a starting point conversation.
I know, I know. Both of them.
So I'm asking for clarifying. So this is exterior lighting and signage. So would this include lighting in a parking lot?
Correct. So any going forward, lighting would have to be 3000 Kelvin or less.
Going forward? So I'm thinking of particularly, there's a business in West Glenwood that like caught my attention. I don't know how long it's been that way, but it's like their exterior lighting seems far brighter than our local ordinance. And so how quickly, do they have 5 years?
So again, the 2032 is only
Just for the
signs.
signs. So that's, so
not
so
lighting.
if we vote this in tonight, then somebody would be contacting them in a reasonable period of time and asking them to revise their lighting.
Signage, yeah. So
So not the parking
Yeah,
lot light.
so like the parking lot signage as those
Nope,
lights.
these are lights. These are
Or
like
the-
pole
on the-
lights.
on the-
This is, yeah,
So any lighting other than signage,
yes.
as it would be replaced naturally over time, when it is
Got it.
replaced, it would need to be replaced at the lower
color temperature.
which wouldn't necessarily be lower lumens or less light fixture.
Right.
But just color
and
temperature.
that's exactly, so I guess what I'm wondering is, yeah, that's what I was needing clarification on, is how quickly we could see areas like that evolve. Cause I was looking at that going, there's a color temperature in there that's much more appealing than what I'm seeing. So that would just like over the natural life, it wouldn't
Yeah.
be anything that would happen quickly.
Correct. And
That's all I needed. That's all I needed. That's all I needed. Nope. Thank you. I just was looking clarification on that.
Thank you, Counselor Smith.
Thank you.
I turned you off too. Let's do this again. I don't know what's going on.
We can move it.
There you go. Green is green.
Thank you again. Kind of an auxiliary to Councilor Zelinski's question about net effect or eventual effect of the lighting portion of this change. And it actually, as she posed it, the effect of the whole lighting ordinance with or without changes. What exactly, my understanding of the history that 17, 18 years ago, we got our first lighting ordinance. It had a 10-year compliance due date for all lighting. Along about 9.5 years, enough complaints came in that grandfather, that rollback requirement was dropped by city council. What now is the threshold that existing lighting must come into compliance?
So generally new development, and then greenfield sites like, for example, the hotel in in Glenwood Meadows, that would be, all that lighting gets reviewed to code. And then also if you have a redevelopment project that meets specific thresholds, you do have to bring non-conforming things up to compliance, but those are very specific thresholds.
So not just we're going to replace our light bulbs this year, but other redevelopment permitted activities would kick in this ordinance for existing businesses or existing lights?
As they make changes, yes. If it triggers, they meet the threshold that they have to bring non-conforming things up to compliance, then yes. But it would take to see a community-wide effect the way the lighting standards are now, it would take a while.
Oh, I understand it's taking, well, because it's taken 17 years and we're not there yet. But that, again, that threshold, can you give me a couple of examples of what a threshold would be that would bring the lighting into question for an existing operation?
A structural addition, more than 500 square feet. Building elevation changes involving 50% more of the exterior walls. So again,
Okay,
substantial additions.
kind of the familiar sounding redesign, redevelopment things. Understanding that it's possible to follow the principles of the Dark Sky International or whatever other standards might be out there without necessarily paying a fee, without necessarily joining up. You can still follow their guidelines. How close are we to those guidelines with this ordinance, especially as it would be amended?
I would say this, it brings us a little closer. Like color temperature is one thing where you see that in a dark sky model ordinance. A lot of the stuff that we do is very similar. Even some of the stuff that's baked into like our sign code. It lines up in a lot of ways. We're probably not to the level of that. Like if we were to apply for it, we probably would have to make additional changes, but these, especially the color temperature one, does bring us a little closer in that direction.
And again, not advocating that we necessarily get a membership card, but that we have the effects. Why not go wholehearted now and bring in all the changes that we necessary to get to those now publicly evolved standards?
I think directive partly, and then also the community buy-in, because there are things that, you know, if you're a business, you've had this signage, you've had, you know, certain lighting on your property for a long time, and you have to maybe remove that, alter it. So you'll see, it's like Town of Breckenridge, they went down that path and had an initial amortization program that was supposed to end in 2022. And then in 2020, they bumped that out even further. So it takes a lot of work. I mean, you have to do a lot of audits of properties, figure out what lighting you have, not just on, you know, private property, but public property. What does, you know, to Commissioner Schmall's point, what does the city do for lighting? So it's a large lift for that official designation.
And that's very helpful. And I understand that. I apologize, I'm not real clear with my question. Knowing it's a big lift, why not get all the weight on the lift that you can? Why not get in all the standard on the code itself, not on the implementation or the retroactive requirement? Why not put in all of the international standards at once, and so that as the evolution starts to happen, it's there?
I think that could be something that staff could consider if there was, you know, maybe. Again, I think these are starting points. If the directive is to pursue that, we could come back with additional code amendments.
I just wanted to say, the changes that we propose do bring us to that level that other communities are adhering to, that are recognized as dark sky communities. The issue of the designation is it's a whole nother animal. It's certification by that group. There's a cost involved with that. And really, you know, we're trying to have or be armored with the regulations that are needed to apply this to future changes and to redevelopments in the future. Those will be dark sky compliant based on the regulations that we already have and are proposing.
Thank you both.
And I just want to be clear. Nothing that we're proposing tonight is going to make us magically be a dark sky community. This, and we're not responsible for this per se. It would be a coordinated city effort. It's going to be a lot of outreach and education and buy-in from the community. Folks taking their own steps to replace non-compliant lighting, folks creating a value for this in the community, spreading that information. It's not something we can codify.
Nice. Nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Small.
Emery, the dark sky comparison town photograph with the 4 photos that you had there was kind of instructive to me. Primarily because of the view looking south through downtown Glenwood. If you turned that, if that view was taken 90 degrees to the west, I think it would be a lot different outcome. And so I guess if you look from that perspective, I'm not sure we need to do a whole lot more. It looks pretty good, right? Except just maybe right around the foreground there. But I think if you look 90 degrees to the west, it's going to be a different picture. So I guess my point is that it's a long journey, and we should pursue it. I agree.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Townsend.
Just real quick question. Is there anything in here that would be, there's been some issues or people have talked about it over the last few years, the cross that they light up on the mountain up there. There's nothing in here that would preclude them from continuing to do what they do, or somebody could use that as ammunition to get rid of that.
No, because it's not in our jurisdiction.
Oh, it's not?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And even if it were, it could be considered holiday lighting.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll see none. Thank you. Thank you, Emery. Anybody from the public have any input on the lighting? We'll see none. We'll move on, bring it back to council, entertaining a motion in item 9, ordinance 2026-08. Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski.
I move to approve ordinance 2026-08. An ordinance of the city of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, amending our municipal code regarding the regulation of permitting of exterior lighting and signage. Based on the staff report and the recommendation from planning and zoning and the finding.
The findings.
Thank you. I didn't have to say planning file, CDA,
No.
la, la, la.
Good enough. Thank you. Motion to approve. Counselor Smith.
Second.
And a second. All of that is great, yeah. Any more discussion? Counselor Smith.
It is ever so appropriate that we get to consider this tonight, as we are exactly midway in International Dark Sky Week, April 13 through 20.
And of course, you would know that. So that's fantastic. That is awesome. Okay, any more discussion?
It's also
you're not-
appropriate because, as staff mentioned, this goal of dark sky, however we gradually or technically define it, is mentioned in the comp plan, is mentioned in the city council's own vision statement. And it meets the criteria that planning and zoning carefully screened it with. So it's just a marvelous idea. I think this helps bring the code itself into continuity, into fulfillment of the 5 principles that are used generally for describing a dark sky community. Use light only if it's needed, direct it where it's needed, have it no brighter than necessary, only when needed, and using warmer colors. We've explicitly done some changes that, combined with what's already there, do those things. This is a rock and roll success. Urge approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? See none, I'll call for the question.
It passes 7-0.
Thank you, Ryan. Moving on to item 10 on the agenda, ordinance 2026-07. An ordinance of the city of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, rezoning 7 parcels totaling 20.84 acres from Glenwood Springs Mall PUD to mixed-use M1 district. So we just a little thing, we did talk about the zoning. When was that, in October? Last year,
Yeah,
so this is
we-
the ordinance to follow.
This is the ordinance to follow. And
Okay.
it got missed on just getting it in and up to date. So,
Yeah, I thought we.
yeah, I know. I was said the same thing when we were asked for an ordinance. I'm like, didn't we
Yeah.
already do that? So if you guys have already made the decision on this, this is the paperwork that goes with that decision.
Right, so, Jim, please.
Or somebody just make a motion.
Well,
Can't we do that?
Yeah, you can do that.
Counselor Wyman?
I move to approve ordinance number 7, series 2026, ordinance City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, rezoning 7 parcels totaling 20.84 acres from Glenwood Springs Mall planned unit development to mixed-use corridor M1 district.
And
Might ask for public comment after the second.
I can do that. We have a motion to approve out of nowhere. Very nice, thank you. Counselor Schachter,
Second the motion.
and a second. To approve this, anybody from the public? We'll see none, no comments on that, so I'll bring it back to us. Any discussion? I'll see none, I'll call for the question.
Ciao, Jim.
Hardcastle.
Jim killed it, 7-0.
Connected you, you done.
All I had to stand up.
Thank you, Jim, anyway, for being here. All right, excellent. Item 11, ordinance 2026-09, an ordinance City Glenwood Springs, Colorado, amending the Glenwood Springs Municipal Code regarding the regulation and permitting of landscaping, screening, and fencing. Planning file, CDA 00026-2026. Jim's still here. That must be your file as well.
That's mine.
Okay.
I'm just seeing what I can do to expand this a little bit more.
Were you hoping to follow that first act?
I'm waiting for a motion, so.
Yeah. Just,
I love that it's sideways. So, that's not it.
pretty good.
Don't hack it up. You're doing so good.
It gets much better than that, this. There we go. Maybe. Okay. Thanks for being here this evening, Jim Hardcastle, Community Development. In front of you this evening is ordinance pertaining to red line changes for Municipal Code 70-4050, landscaping, screening, and fencing. In front of you this evening tonight, under this code, just to be aware, your role is to consider the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, which met on March 24th. They recommended approval with one recommendation concerning addressing tree separations, spacing distances. You'll see those noted in yellow throughout this presentation with the original red lines which they saw. There are 3 sets of rationale for the changes. One of those is staff initiated changes that cleans up misspellings, errors, clarifications, breakdowns of full paragraphs, which have led to confusion. So cleaning those up is all discuss as we move along. The second is Senate Bill 24005. Its secondary name was Prohibit Landscape Practices for Water Conservation. At the state level, it was created and passed in 24 as a way of addressing impacts of climate change and increased water demands, limiting specific uses of water-intensive grass, prohibit non-functional turf and artificial turf and invasive plant species for new and redevelopment projects. This does not pertain to existing development, as we saw within the lighting code a moment ago, as those come forward and do what they do. You would find there's a confusion there because that redevelopment would apply to them. But for existing developments, there's nothing that we can do or would do to encourage them to do anything different other than the initiatives and you're looking a little confused, so maybe. So yeah, we have citywide initiatives with turf buyback and water schedules and plants that are drought tolerant. Yes, so we encourage those, but this doesn't apply to private residential lots. The third item is the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code, brought forward last year by the Wildfire Resiliency Code Board. It is a new code, applies to new construction, exterior alterations and additions within the wildland urban interface. The code's purpose is to establish regulations for safeguarding life and property, limiting that exposure to wildland fires spreading to and from structures. And its adoption is focusing on critical response to increasing wildfire risk, as we've seen in the news in the last couple of years, with the added intention of helping communities maintain insurability of homes. There are 11 groups, and I'll go through them fairly quickly. At the top there, you'll see in blue which initiative applies. This one is all staff initiated. It's cleaning up the exemptions, making clear what we've always worked for and thought the code approved to begin with in terms of exemptions, however, still adhering to water efficiency landscape standards, for example, streetscape requirements and such. If you have any questions along the way, sure.
This should clean it up.
Yep.
Give me the microphone.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Since you're cleaning it up under 2A, do you want that to be accept or exempt?
Uses shall be exempt. That should be exempt.
Homework.
Catch that. Thank you. Group number 2 is a fallout from the Senate Bill 5. It identifies the idea that although artificial trees, shrubs, turf, and plants should not be used to satisfy any of the requirements of the section, artificial turf could be used to satisfy the section if it were a functional use, similar to functional turf. Is it going to be used for a relevant activity type, activity appropriate dimensions, the frequency of the use is considered, and the presence of facilities or other recreational amenities around it would support it. Although it is, and this was brought to our attention by a group that helped us review our code, it's something that should be allowed at this point or considered, as it encourages zero water for this particular use. The second one down below, E, also is Senate Bill 5 initiated or supported. It identifies plants to be used in all planting scenarios to be used from City of Glenwood Springs Parks and Recreation Department landscape plant species guides. There are several of them out there, and they all have drought tolerant, a mix of drought tolerant, riparian species, and those are to be utilized. The Garfield County Vegetation Management Department has a current noxious weed list, and that identifies things like Siberian and Chinese elm, Russian olive, and tamarisk, which shall not be planted. Group number 3 is a combination of all 3 initiatives. Mulch, we just broke it out into 2 sections. But then we identified from the Wildfire Resiliency Code a section that indicated that organic mulch shall not be utilized within 5 feet of a structure, nor other plantings. Plant selection grouping was cleaned up with a number of items there. Item I, identify drought tolerant as drought tolerant is used on those plant species guides and not water efficiency. And then hydrozones, section A, B, C, and D was broken out for clarity and identification of designations within those hydrozones to be using the landscape guides. Number 4 is all based on the Wildfire Resiliency Code. Those 4 sections identified plants not to be placed within that 5 feet of the building. Whoop, excuse me. And then number 4 was indicating that shrub locations need to be 10-foot greater away from or greater away from adjacent tree branches. The suggestion from the Planning and Zoning Commission was to also identify distances of planted trees and full growth of those trees. So that's where these two sections, 2 and 3, are coming from, which indicates that that distance should be considered upon planting based on the maturity and expectation and growth of the plant, and also for pruning. This section is clarifying the idea that separation for trees in the streetscape should not include the 30-foot based on center for location of planting for those trees, and refers back to the section that I just talked about, and maintaining those separations for trees. This one clarifies what should be used for amenities. That would be in designing other amenities in the downtown area, using the Glenwood Springs Downtown Streetscape Manual. For refuse container enclosures, and did I mention this one was staff initiated, as well as this one. Refuse containers should have, and we have been acting for the last several years in consort of requiring vegetation around those to help screen when they are in certain locations viewed from the public right of way. And those plantings shall be of a sufficient mature height to offer an opaque permanent year-round screening that does not really indicate what it is. This group 8, this is staff initiated also. The screening group on the right, as you see there, that's ground mechanical units. I put that in there to help break apart what it is we don't have pictures for, and that is roof mounted equipment, which we have always screened and used a variety of movements to help maintain that they are not visible from the general public in residential and right-of-way areas. This section just clearly identifies exterior side mounted mechanical and utility equipment. So that's now including those air conditioning units, conduits, any other kind of mechanical equipment that is located on the side of a building. If that becomes difficult to screen, then it could be moved up to the top or brought down to the base. But if you have a multi level building, you might find that you have to put those amenities on the side. This one is a wildfire resiliency code addition. All fencing within 8 feet of a structure shall be constructed with non-combustible or ignition resistant materials. That would just be within that 8 feet. And then as the fence continues on, then they could move back to materials that are allowed by code that are seen up above. This section just clearly identifies the vegetation that we're talking about be located within the recession to help break up that wall, and that is what the retaining wall design cutout is for. That's a misspelling that's corrected. The 5 criteria for text code amendment are listed right here, but I also have them broken down on the next several pages. The first one indicates that the proposal for code amendment in front of you this evening is consistent with the comprehensive plan. That's the first section up above, and it does go to quite a length to foster and protect vibrant, diverse, safe, and well-connected neighborhoods. It secondarily supports public utilities and services and how we apply some of those. The second section down below, Energy and Climate Action Plan, the ECAP, is a municipal-based initiative, as you know, but what it is that we're proposing within these code changes tonight do support the ECAP. It does not conflict with other provisions of the code. It is necessary to address a demonstrated community need, and those needs are a list of 7 based on the purpose that is stated in the code for landscaping, screening, and fencing. It's necessary to respond to substantial changes, as we talked about. One is a state bill, one is a code brought about and approved at the state level, and the other one are needed changes, and that translate, on our level, and that translates to it being consistent with the general purposes and intent of the code. With the modifications, the ECAP, our Senate bill, and Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code outside of what we've talked about previously. Public notice, none has been received on it. It was noticed correctly for the previous meeting in front of the P and Z. Those dates for this meeting are not on there. This evening, you are acting on a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is an approval. This evening, you can approve with conditions, deny, or continue the hearing based on specific information that will help you come to a decision. For that action one code item, staff does recommend approval, and therefore, as outlined with the suggestion motion as follows. Yellowed, making sure that you were clear that it does have the items that were suggested by P and Z and applied. Suggested findings, as we've already talked about, and an alternative motion to deny is there for you. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
All right, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks for the information. Any questions? We'll see none. Great, thank you. Anybody from the public? Also see none. Bring it back to council. Entertaining a motion.
And I was just going to say the ordinance that's in the packet, I believe, covers all of the changes recommended by the planning commission as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Item 11, ordinance 2026-09. Council Townsley.
I recommend approval of ordinance 2026-09, ordinance of City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, amending the Glenwood Springs Municipal Code regarding the regulation and permitting of landscaping, screening, and fencing, planning file CDA 000026-2026.
Based on the findings.
Based on the findings.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. And la. We have a motion to approve, and Mayor Pro Tem?
I second.
And a second. Any more discussion? Councilor Smith.
Just a wording nitpick. I think this, what's here and what Councilor Townsley just read was that we're moving to recommend approval. Aren't we moving to actually approve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I said it wrong, then.
You were just reading what was there.
I understood as you would want to approve it.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion? See none, I'll call for the question.
It passes 7-0.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for being here. And I've been asked to do a quick recess for a restroom break. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thing still April 16th. I don't know what time it is. Yeah, 8:44 this time. We're doing item 12, right-of-way and grading permit code changes. Ryan Gordon, please.
Good evening, Ryan Gordon, city engineer. Just a real quick clarification. So this is some upgrades, revisions to the actual permit. So it's not the code in the code provision, but some of that was my mistake in the title of that agenda item.
Okay.
We did have a work session about this several weeks ago, and this is kind of update to that and kind of run through this on some of the items that we want. So in engineering, we have a couple different permits. We have a grading permit. Generally speaking, that grading permit allows the city staff to review grading on all pieces of property to make sure the grading doesn't affect the adjacent properties. We require a grading permit if you're grading more than 200 square feet. And along with anything, a construction management plan, just kind of talking about how you're managing erosion and drainage and material storage. Just to note, anything larger than 1 acre by law requires a state stormwater permit. So this does not apply to those larger projects. Again, we have a right-of-way permit. So this permit allows the city to understand, control, and then administer any work that occurs within the city's right-of-way. We require a right-of-way permit if there's obstructions or work that occurs within right-of-way. So that includes, construction activities and whatnot. What this doesn't cover and what we don't require is let's say, very short-term usages of the right-of-way. A delivery vehicle, for instance, or a landscaping company who has a trailer and then goes and mows a lawn. That does not require a right-of-way permit. With a right-of-way permit, we ask for a traffic control plan. Again, so we can manage how traffic is going to be functioning on a city street or city road. So what are we doing this? A few requirements or a few things that we want to update. Generally speaking, we want to simplify how the fees are calculated. This is more pertinent to the right-of-way. The right-of-way permit, currently the right-of-way permit has a calculation on the amount of square footage of asphalt you're disturbing or linear footage of curb and gutter and whatnot. We're kind of going away with that in a much simpler process, and I'll go into that. The main thing is we're updating the fees to kind of reflect current times, meaning that how much time and effort it takes staff to administer these fees. So right now, say for grading permits, for instance, they're generally kind of, that doesn't really reflect the larger time it takes in effort for a larger project to review and administer. Right? So we're trying to correct some of those deficiencies. On the right-of-way fees, we are looking to increase how much it costs essentially to rent our right-of-way. Right? So think of a construction project that is taking up many parking spots. We are trying to make it such that they have a little more skin in the game, so to speak. We currently the fees have a couple hours in there for inspection in the right of way. There's nothing in there that talks about re-inspection. So what we see and what's happening quite a bit is a contractor comes out and does something, doesn't do it quite right, and then we have to come back a time or two. Again, it takes time for the city staff to do those revisits. So we want to make sure that we are capturing effectively that extra time that city staff is coming out to re-inspect projects. We provided a better mechanism to enforce non-compliance. Right now, there are some items in there on red tagging and some whatever else, but we actually have dollar amounts and some more enforcement mechanisms in case people aren't following the rules. Currently, our permits don't have expiration dates. We have a sunset provision, so now they will expire, requiring people to come back and get new ones if their project goes on for many, many years. So I'm going to go through really some very, very simple cost examples of before and after to get a sense of kind of what we're doing. So grading permits, they're based on a square footage of land disturbed, moved around, right? So smaller projects, you can look on the screen, let's say 1,000 square feet. Right now it's $170. The new one is $100, right? So what we're trying to do again is shift the burden if you're doing more grading as opposed to simple projects at your home. Medium projects, let's say 5,000 square feet, it's about the same, $290 up to $300. So larger projects is kind of where it goes up, right? So again, a 20,000 foot effort right now in the permit costs you $650. That's going to cost you $1,500 moving forward. And again, the reason why those larger projects do require a little more time and effort on staff to administer and go out and check and make sure things are going correctly. So the penalties I mentioned before. So right now, if you don't have a permit, there's a $0 penalty. We do check on folks and make them come up to compliance. What we're doing now is we're saying it's $150 per day. Again, we're really trying to encourage and force people to really, follow the rules so we can, make sure things are going correctly. Failure to comply with our construction management plan, the CNP, same thing, about $100 per day. I think we've done a good job at staff level of working with the homeowner contractors, right, of the right size for the project. So the CNP plan doesn't have to be something that you hire a contractor or an engineer to do. We just ask you to put some thought and effort to it. But again, we want to see this so we know you're actually thinking about how your project is being managed. Oh, so that's kind of where we are with the grading permit. Looking on to the right-of-way permit. So again, currently for obstruction only, right? So this is blocking a parking spot, using the right of way. Right now it's a flat $50 fee, period. So what we're asking is, if you're in the GID in the downtown area, it's going to cost you $250 per month per parking space. Again, we've seen instances in the past where if you're downtown, you pay $50, you can basically take as much space as you want for as long as you want. We think there should be more of a requirement to kind of pay for your space. We do have in the right-of-way permit in the code that you can't store things like roll-off dumpsters and construction material. So this would be for parking spaces or whatever else. Outside of the GID, we're just simply saying, hey, $50 per space per month, recognizing that you're on a neighborhood street. It's not quite as obtrusive, so to speak, right? But again, we are trying to encourage people to stay out of the city roads and the right of way when they're doing their construction projects. Boring permits are about the same. That's if you're going in there doing a conduit bore. So that's basically the same. We've adjusted it slightly. So penalties, if you operate without a permit currently, the first time you do it, you get red tagged and there's a warning and you get a talking to by the engineering department. What we're saying now is if you don't come in and get a permit, it's going to cost you $250 per day. We want you to fix that right away. Again, if we go back to the current one, it elevates, right? So the second time it's a red tag and then $50. The third one is a red tag and a $500 fee. What we're trying to do is encourage doing the correct thing to start with, as opposed to having to go over and over and over again and have these conversations. In the current one, not having a traffic control plan doesn't carry any sort of penalty. We will, again, on the new one, we want to have a $250 penalty per day. Again, this is really, public safety, getting people moved around, right? So we want to make sure that you come in and really are thinking about your project. Again, one of the things, so we want to have these roads open by 7 p.m. if you have a road shutdown. So currently there's no fee at all if you don't follow that. What we want to do is again, get the contractor to get things open. So we're going to charge you $100 per hour if you're not getting wrapped up by 7 p.m. at the end of the day. So the other thing I mentioned is inspection fees. So our current one includes 1 2-hour inspection per discipline. So in engineering, that's the engineering inspector who goes out and makes sure that you're following the rules on how you build your curb and gutter and your sidewalk and your asphalt. Also on both the water, wastewater, and electrical, staff is those folks to inspect for those disciplines. The current one does not have an additional cost or a fee for reinspection. As I mentioned, we seem to having some issues with many times going back, essentially city staff being the QA/QC person or the person making sure you're doing the right work correctly. So now we're going to have some reinspection fees if we have to come out there again. So again, the engineering inspector, if we come out again, $65 per hour. City engineer, assistant engineer needing to go out there for $75. Water and wastewater superintendent, $75 an hour, and the electric superintendent, $110. It's supposed to be $110 per hour. So that's generally what we want to do, is to bring this, I'm going to say, back into let's say current time, so to speak. I think one thing I want to mention that is in our code, but it wasn't on my slides, is our intention here isn't just to find people to the ears. We will be working with folks. If they're coming in and they make a mistake, we're not simply going to be just charging them, over and over again, right? We definitely want compliance. And so we definitely have some leniency of, hey, everybody makes mistakes, some oversights. If one of us is redoing our lawn and doesn't realize we need a grading permit, it's not something we're going to come down with the hammer. This is really a way of again, getting people sort of to comply with our current standards. So with that, I'll open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Ryan. And we'll start with Councilor Schmal.
So Ryan, if somebody is found to be in violation of a grading permit of 1,000 square feet or so on a Thursday afternoon, and they're subject to a $250 non-compliant fee for not having the permit, and they came in Friday to get the permit, they probably couldn't get it until Monday. So what is their fine going to be? $750 or $250 or?
So I would say we have the discretion in the department per our Chapter 1 of engineering standards of having some leniency or let's say, some logic. So depending on what's going on, if it's a first time offender, if it's a first time someone of like, hey man, I just didn't think about it, we would certainly waive those fees, right? But this is a repeat offender or whatnot, then we would impose those fees. So if that came in on Thursday, if we found out Thursday afternoon, we wouldn't be charging for a Saturday and Sunday. It's just working days. And a lot of it too is to get them to come into compliance. So if they came into compliance, again, we have the discretion to waive those fees.
Because the building department guys think their only authority is the more severe penalty or the more severe interpretation of what's written is what they told us. They have no flexibility, only more stringent requirements.
We do have some abilities to be a little more lenient in the engineering code on some of these items that are written in there, and it's kind of set at the discretion of the city engineer. So again, we will look on a case by case basis and really determine if we really need to address it or if it's something that's relatively simple to correct.
The building department wouldn't be involved in any of this then, only the engineering department?
So building department's in community development, not engineering. And again, so we as engineering are not looking at what goes on with the building. We're looking at what's going on with site drainage or site grading and site drainage, and then what works and what happens in the actual right of way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Townsley.
So this brought up an interesting thing that I thought of 2 weeks ago, and when they go in to put that building in on 2nd Street, the one that just got approved, that's going to have 3 floors of residences above the
8th Street.
8th Street, yeah, 208th Street.
Sure, yeah.
When that goes in, what's going to happen, and how are we going to monitor that so that they don't come around? There's going to be a huge number of people working on that. That's almost a 0 lot line building. What's going to happen? Do we know? Are they going to just say, okay, it's $250 a month to take up every spot in downtown Glenwood, and we built that into our piece? Or how are we going to keep them from, the workers have to have their trucks there. How are they going to stage that? How are we going to keep our whole downtown from just being basically buried by that project?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think first off, my response would be is having discussions with that contractor, that owner prior to their project going up. And we've started to have those discussions on like, how are they going to do this? Are they going to have a crane? Where's the crane going to be? What's their plan for obstructing or keeping, let's say, the alleyway open, keeping the sidewalks open, right? So we're going to try to be proactively in working with these projects that have larger disturbances or larger impacts to downtown. So our goal is not to allow them or not to have them take up every parking spot and whatnot. I see where you're going, and I guess this permit probably doesn't really address, say, a massive impact like that, and that's maybe something that we're gonna have to look at. But again, what my response would be is our goal is to have these conversations with developers and contractors as they're coming in with building permits and looking to get the right-of-way permits to make sure that we don't have that large of an impact. I will say with that individual project so far, we've had discussions on, you know, where are your guys coming in and parking? Are you carpooling, van pooling? Are they parking in downtown areas of the neighborhoods? You know, material delivery, that kind of stuff. So we're trying to work proactively such that we don't have to get to that point.
Okay, it seems like that's one that could get out of hand really quickly. So hopefully, you know, if you need to adjust anything now, it'd be easier to adjust it before they started than after.
Agreed.
I have no expertise in that other than it just seems to me like that's going to be a cluster for a long time.
And I will say, Councilor Townsley, on the right of way permit and how they present it, right? We have the opportunity to say, if they say, hey, look, we want 20 parking spots, we can turn around and say, that is a great request. We're not giving you any of them, right? So there is that opportunity, but you know, and so approving what they submit is part of the process. So if they ask for, again, I'm an outlandish request, we want the whole block of 8th Street to be ours for construction, we are not going to allow that to happen. So again, it's kind of what we approve and what they're asking for. And that's kind of how that's going to balance out.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski.
So on the grading permit, you said something about, you know, doing a lawn project. So I'm going to use myself as an example. I have like a desire to take out some flower beds, take out some of my lawn, and I want to put in some mulch and some hardscaping and some things like that. I'm not really doing a ton, like I'm probably digging down. I don't have irrigation in my front yard. Does that require, like that to me is just like gardening. Like I shouldn't have to get a permit for that, right? But it might be my whole front yard.
Yep. So the engineering standards requires that if you're just disturbing 200 square feet or more, that you come and talk to us and get a permit.
Got it.
So that's a base fee of $125. Really, and so really the point of the grading permit and why we ask this is under you know state of Colorado law, you cannot negatively affect your neighbor. And this has happened before of where someone makes these minor changes and all of a sudden your runoff goes on to your neighbor and then has some sort of impact, right? So this allows us the opportunity of, again, you know, for these smaller projects of really just a quick snapshot of saying, hey, look, we see what you're doing. It's not a big deal. You know, you didn't create a giant, you know, concrete sluice that went into your neighbor's, you know, basement window type stuff, right? So it's a way of us to really making sure that we're not creating problems outside of what's going on in the existing issues.
And this would be appropriate for both the front yard and the rear yard.
Yeah, and again, we're not going around and jumping over fences and looking what everybody's doing. So this is kind of to make sure, again, that neighbors are playing fairly.
So it's kind of like an honor system, because honestly, you're not going to see what's going on in somebody's backyard, but maybe I know what's going in my neighbor's backyard. And so then.
Yeah. So again, it's kind of a mechanism too, that if you see your neighbor doing something.
Like,
yeah.
Or you might know a nice agent.
Yeah, right. I'm just trying to understand kind of the
So it overall, the grading permit is a mechanism to protect you from your neighbors or vice versa, right?
but
So
if you're changing the grade of things, not if you're
Correct.
just going in there and like just redoing a planting or laying sod where your grass had died.
that's correct.
Okay. I was confused when you said something about lawn. That's where you lost me. So.
Disturbing ground of 200 square feet or more.
But it's like the surface of the ground, not like changing the grade.
Correct.
Like that's what I'm trying to understand.
But again, it is a mechanism to, again, to protect, again, if your neighbor is doing something and at the end of the project, it is causing a problem for you, we can go back and say, hey, did you pull a grading permit to show us that you're not causing a problem
Got it.
to your neighbors? And if they are, then we can go back and say, hey, look, you should have pulled a grading permit.
So
There's
this
a
is
problem.
Most likely going to come into effect when there's a problem as like a mitigation tool rather than.
On these small scale ones. That's again why we wanted to make these smaller type projects a really low cost entry point, because again, we want, you know, and again, it's kind of a thing of, hey, can you kind of look over my shoulder? Is this going to be a problem? And it kind of sounds a little bit silly, but we have had issues, even since I've been here the last 3 years, where someone has done something on their lot line,
Yeah.
thinking, hey, look, this is just
Yeah.
a nothing burger, and all of a sudden there is something that causes drainage or something else to, to affect your neighbors.
It makes sense. And then how are most residents of Glenwood Springs going to become aware of these requirements?
So these have been on the books for a long time.
And I had no clue.
That's
That's what I'm saying. Like, I garden regularly. I'm just curious how to me, it doesn't seem common that you would be pulling a permit for that type of work. So I'm just curious how one would.
When code enforcement has nothing better to do and they see you're digging in your yard.
Yeah.
That is one mechanism on how to do that. And then it's just kind of being personally responsible. And again, on these, like I said, lots of times too, someone will come in and be like, hey, someone told me I had to get a grading permit. I'm super sorry. It's not like we've been doing this for 5 days. So all of a sudden five times 250, cut us a check for $1,000 right now. It's like, hey, we get it. Let's just clean this up and make sure we're all on the same page.
Got it. All right, cool. Thank you.
So just a quick follow-up before we go to Council Schachter. Does this require a drawing?
No, it does not. What it does require is a construction management plan. And so
For 1,000 square feet?
So a drawing, you can come in on a piece of paper on the back of the napkin, sketch it up and say, this is what we're doing. Again, a drawing can say, hey, like if we're changing the grade from this to this, right? That drawing will tell us what you're doing. And again, that drawing will help us. If you're doing, let's say 1,000 square feet and you are pouring new concrete, we want to make sure that you are planning correctly for your material storage, right? That you're not going to be dumping a bunch of materials into the storm drain that gets eventually to the river. So again, it's a way of having the applicant put just a little bit of thought, and we're not asking for an engineered drawing from a stamped engineer or anything like that, but it's like, hey, I'm doing this over here. And if it's a planter bed, we wouldn't be asking you to do anything. But again, if you are removing lawn, putting in a concrete patio, we want to see kind of what you're doing to see the impacts.
Okay, but mainly if the grading changes. If you just replace something and put a new thing there, same grade, you don't have to do a thing.
Again, yeah, we read every one of these and it's a case by case basis. So if you come in and say, hey, look, I am taking out my yard, 1,000 square feet a yard, putting in flowers. Okay, that seems pretty straightforward. So we would say, wonderful, thank you very much. Here's your permit, go and.
Oh, it still requires a permit?
Correct.
Okay. Right, 200.
200. 10 by 20.
Okay. All right, Council Schachter.
Thank you. So I appreciate, Ryan, the direction or the intent to say, hey, smaller residential, we'll keep the prices down. I'm thinking of a personal example. If I was reading correctly about boring and the right of way. So had a water line replacement, you might have been aware of it, I know. And the amount of space bored under the right of way, okay, to the curb stop, basically, not our lawn, was, let's say for argument's sake, 10 feet, which would have cost $5. If I'm reading this, it would automatically cost $500 no matter how much of the right of way is being bored under. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be correct. Right. Again, so before, the way the right of way permit was calculated was on a quantity based on the amount of material you're removing from the right of way and then putting it back. And so our opinion is, this is not necessarily boring, but let's say you replaced.
I'm sorry, I'm just talking specifically about boring, that involves no surface displacement whatsoever.
Be aware that the boring includes some additional information, right? If you're going to bore, you're going to have to tell us, are there other obstructions in the way? Is there a gas line? Is there other water lines? Is there a sewer line? So you're going to have to locate that material. So while the boring fee for the permit may be minor, there is a lot more that goes into it to ensure that you're not going to disturb other elements within the right of way.
But the boring fee goes up to $500 no matter what. If I read it correctly, as opposed to.
That is correct, yeah.
It would have been less than $10.
Well, before, let me see what was the before.
Right, that's all right. I just want to make sure I understood it.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Council Smith.
Thank you, Ryan. In describing the right-of-way permit, fees, you described that as connected to parking, at least connected in part to parking spaces lost during the project. Where does that money go? And is that destination for the money something that enhances parking somewhere else?
It's a good question on where that goes. And Steve, do you know where that go? I should know that. I don't know where. I think it goes back into is it the general fund for engineering fees?
Yes, engineering is in the general fund, correct.
So Councilor Smith, what that does is it doesn't enhance parking elsewhere. What it does is it encourages a project to not take up right of way unless they have to.
It's a disincentive or a
Correct.
efficiency.
Correct. And again, we've seen projects in the downtown core that with $50 have consumed a section of right of way for the better part of a year or more.
That disincentive seems to make probably enough sense on its own. It would be elegant if the money went into, say, the fund to maintain the downtown parking garage or something related, but.
And I will say, as an example, you look up at places like, City of Aspen. I think they charge, I think it's $500 per month per parking space. So not to say that we're comparing to Aspen, but again, we're trying to encourage people to think more thoughtfully how their project is executed and what impact it has on the right of way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, we'll see none. Thank you, Ryan. Don't go too far, I have a feeling. Anybody from the public like to comment on this item? See none. Close the public portion. I'll bring it back to council for an action. Item 12, right-of-way and grading permit fee changes, not code changes, fee changes. Councilor Weimer.
So Ryan, what I'm thinking about asking or proposing here is to respectfully send you back to do some more work on this. That I think changing or highlighting the fees on these things is bringing to attention, at least for me, and I think some others, some libertarian urges to live and let live on some of these things. So a 200 square foot sod to dirt garden, as the example that we've been using tonight, should never even bother you. And I want you to disagree with me if you think, I'm just speaking ignorantly here, but I think there's room in here for some language that if we're changing from non to permeable, for instance, right? Or we're adjusting slope, or we're doing some of those other things that you are rightly concerned about, I'm all for it. But if and again, the example we've been using, but I think it's a good highlight. If I'm just going from sod to a flower bed and it's 300 square feet in my backyard, I think it should not require, even in hindsight, did you get a permit for that? You're looking at $125. You're looking at, this is something I want to do tomorrow, because it's going to be nice weather. And now, it's just not it's not in the nature, the spirit of, I think it's not in keeping of the spirit of some of the things that we're trying to not worry about, and others that we are trying to worry about. Am I making any sense?
I see.
Hang on a second. This was a motion to continue. I still need a second.
I've not made a motion yet.
Oh, you haven't?
No,
Oh.
I've tossed this out as kind of where.
Oh.
It's a bit of a that is, I guess, and thank you for that. So then my question would be, Ryan, is there language, is there room in this where you think you could, if this were to go forward, make us happy with some of these issues, but still satisfy your engineering mandate?
I think there probably are, Counselor Weimer. Again, again, the mechanism why this is in here is to ensure that one property isn't negatively
Totally get
affecting
it.
another.
And
So
I think
we
I think
can-
everyone supports that.
we can probably figure that out. I will say things like the turf removal program, right, which you go from sod to landscaping, right, does kind of accomplish that and does
That's if I want to submit to the program.
that's right.
If I just want to pull sod out and I don't care about the $2 per square foot or whatever it is, again, that never hits your radar.
So yeah, I can go back and see if maybe we can define better what is under that
I
category.
draw a line between what's copacetic and what needs to come to your desk. Because it's not just about square footage. I think it's about how we are affecting, permeability, my neighbors on a Saturday are not going to be out there changing the grade of their front yard,
There are, and I guess my counter to that would be a disturbing of if you ripped up your lawn and left it dirt. Not saying that's what you're doing, but as an example, there is a stormwater erosion issue that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Again, if you're just leaving it bare, there's very likely going to be runoff from a major storm that is going to create a problem.
I think that's a great point.
And so that is, again, one of the reasons why we would look at that. We'd come back and if you submitted that permit and said, hey, look, I got 500 square feet, I'm going from grass to dirt. We'd come back and say, I'm not sure if this is the right thing to do. And the reason would be because what happens when you have runoff and then you have a bunch of dirt that gets in the storm drain system.
On one hand, I think I should totally be allowed to go from grass to dirt. It's my yard. I should be able to do whatever I want with it. But if there is, in all honesty, right? But if there's guidelines, you need to put up a barrier, you need to, because you're just going to be a big dirt patch out there. Again, it may be trying to please some of my irrational thinking here. I feel very rational in what I'm asking. So again, I'm asking, do you think there's room in the language? Sounds like maybe there is. I also don't want to blow this. This doesn't need to be a 45-minute work. I'm not asking for,
sure.
You know what I mean? And I could be the only one up here feeling this way as well. And I've already taken up.
That's why you should make a motion and see how it goes.
Some more rationale.
Yeah, I mean, I just spitballing, I think there could be a way of writing into whether it's the permit or the standards of realized erosion or whatever erosion potential there could be another layer there of something. So I see where you're coming from. I'm going to give that some thought to see how we can weave that in there.
So I propose,
It's inappropriate.
I move that we respectfully send Ryan back to his drawing board
Continue.
to continue this to another discussion time, another time.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to continue this item.
That's a good question. For a second.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Mayor Pro Tem Zielinski.
Is it possible to approve the right-of-way fees and then revisit the grading permit revisions?
I would say yes.
Okay, so,
I don't know if
I would
yeah.
say yes
decide that.
too, actually.
yeah, so
Hang on, let's see what Councilor Weimer.
So amended motion to accept all of the portions that Ryan's presented related to right of way.
Let's do two actions. Let's do one for the right of way and then, but not in one motion.
How else do you separate it? It's one thing. I have to separate it.
But I know, but you have a motion standing to continue this entire item.
To continue. So amending my motion,
Still a motion.
Mr. Mayor, respectfully, Sorry. It's 9:20.
I know.
I move to accept the recommendations from Ryan Gordon related to right-of-way materials, his permitting and fees and such, and to continue the discussion. It's one.
Okay.
You're the mayor. What should I do, sir?
Keep going.
Okay. Like honestly, what?
If it was me, I'd prefer to split it up and have a clean one on right of way moving forward as approval, if that's what you want to do. And the second one, we do a continuance on the second part, which is the grading.
I don't know how to do that in two motions.
You do them in two motions. My first motion would be to approve the
Right.
right of way.
And then let's
it
vote
now.
on this and then do the second.
I move to continue recommendations as presented related to right-of-way fees and
No.
Continuing right away.
I said approve.
No, you
I
said
said
continue
continue.
this time.
Good Lord, I'm so sorry. I
okay.
move to approve the recommendations as presented as they relate to the right-of-way fees and et cetera.
Excellent. That's a motion to approve. We took it apart. Everybody understands. Now I need a second for that motion. Counselor Small. I'm looking for,
I'll second.
thank you. So just is clear, we,
Thank you.
we took it apart because I think we see some value in some of this. Then we have a motion to approve the right-of-way fee structure. Any discussion? Counselor Townsend.
So since we are kind of looking at redoing some of this, is there any value at all, going back to my issue of that building that's going to go up on 8th Street, of saying, okay, $250 for a parking spot for a month if you have one spot or you've taken this up. But again, if, when you mentioned that you've seen contractors take up a spot for an entire year, if we have a contractor that's taking up more than X number of spots, let's say it's 4, it's 5, whatever that is, we up that fee to a larger amount to really put some teeth into where they don't take over our downtown parking?
Well, you really, the motion stands. You need to appeal. to us to see if-
I'm asking if that would
Yeah,
have value to him.
I-
It's a way to control.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that
My question,
if I
I'm
could
trying
make a
to-
suggestion just to kind of navigate through this. I think there's probably some value in taking a look at that. I think we have a little time to take another bite of the apple, because fees are a resolution set kind of, one motion kind of setting process. I think so I think maybe moving forward with what we have and taking a hard look at how we do kind of right of way and project permitting when they're on a larger scale, that I don't think we can do on the fly tonight.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it seems like the continuance of both is probably appropriate at this time, is where I'm
Well,
hearing from you guys.
only if you made the motion to approve and it's been second. So I think,
Bring back that one.
You can come back with it.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, I got you. Yeah.
So let's just do that one.
We can fail the motion.
Right, we can do that too. So any more discussion on the first part of the right-of-way approval motion? If I see none, I'll call for the question.
No, Counselor Townsley. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Yes, Mayor Dame. Yes, Counselor Weimer.
Well, I can see it.
You might be making it up.
I was gonna say, we're like, I don't know.
Well, I saw it first. Anyway.
No, Counselor Townsley. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Yes, Mayor Dame. Yes, Counselor Weimer. No, Counselor Schmal. Yes, Counselor Smith. Yes, Counselor Schachter. It passes 5-2.
Thank you, Ryan.
And just a quick clarification to Carl, if we want to revisit Counselor Townsley's suggestion, we can come back at the next one and
Yeah.
say, hey, look, we want to look at
Yeah,
impacts.
And I'm thinking that we may want to tweak the engineering standards a little bit to address specific make it more
Process.
project-based process rather than just the right-of-way permit only.
So Counselor Townsley, I agree with your sentiment, so we'll take a look at that. That's a good
Okay,
suggestion.
excellent. Everybody gets what they want. Perfect. So second part, grading permit fee changes. Entertaining a motion, Counselor Weimer.
So I move to continue to a later date with Ryan's recommendations as they relate to grading, the fees and the square footages and the needs for permits and those sorts of the thing, as we talked about 10 minutes ago.
Thank you. We have a motion to continue. Counselor Schmal
I'll second.
and a second. Any discussion on the continuance? See none, call for the question.
It passes 7-0.
You picked up on that, Mayor.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Can you rework that if you're working in an area,
Microphone,
the street is not straight? Will you?
Microphone.
Grading on the curve?
Steve, microphone,
Make a
please.
joke.
Oh, but we all want to hear it. I know, I know. All right, tell us the joke.
I was trying hard to force grading on a curve into the conversation. Didn't work.
Okay. Counselor Schmal, what do you got?
So as you go back through this, consider what things might be like when the exceedingly amicable and rational Ryan Gordon is no longer evaluating what you're writing. Because eventually that's going to happen.
Sure.
And we're going to have someone who is more like a building official who knows nothing more than the more stringent requirement and has no latitude other than the more stringent requirement. It's nice to think of our nice, warm, rational community, but it's going to change and the rules are still going to be there. And so someone who sits on a unusual 4-acre piece of property who wants to put in a 3,000 square foot patio that has no chance of affecting any of his neighbors with it versus someone who lives on a 50 by 100 lot in downtown Glenwood who wants to do 1,000 square foot patio are going to be completely different impacts and potential damages. And one size is not going to fit all.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 13, ordinance 2026.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Ryan. An ordinance of the city of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, amending the 2026 appropriation ordinance to reflect carryovers from the 2025 budget, reallocation of funds and expenditures approved after submission of the 2026 budget. Yvette, please.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. This is just our normal quarterly supplemental for anything that's come up during the quarter, things you have talked about and approved, and it's just a cleanup for the budget.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Weimer,
Would like to make a motion, Mr. Mayor?
please.
I move to approve ordinance 2026-10, ordinance City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, amending 2026 appropriation ordinance to reflect carryovers from the 2025 budget, reallocation of funds and expenditures approved after submission of the 2026 budget as presented.
Thank you. Motion to approve
I second.
and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Any discussion? See none, I'll call for the question.
It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you all. That was good. Council comments. Councilor Townsley. No. Councilor Small. Okay, all right. There you go. And let me see, you're on.
I guess I'll have to phrase this as a comment versus a question. Is it possible at all to, that sounds like a question. There's no question mark at the end. What would it take to get a few more permits out for people? You know, we had those 100 permits out for people to
Vouchers.
get trash picked up. What would it take to increase that number or get some extras out there?
I'm looking at the different looks on the dais right now. From a staff perspective, it won't be, I mean, I don't know that it's a huge deal from a staff perspective, if that's what you guys would do.
Yes.
Remind us what.
It's,
the landfill vouchers for your,
no, it's for them to come
It's a
and pick up.
curbside pickup.
oh,
The people that didn't have trucks, remember last year, that was our concession.
Could you turn on your mic so people can hear the curbside pickup?
who wants to explain what it is, Aaron?
Certainly. So last year there was conversation because we don't have the spring cleanup and yet providing people with a voucher to go bring their items to the landfill wasn't a great solution because some people don't have the means to do that. And so the concession was to issue a certain number of, I guess, permits or vouchers or vouchers for that pickup to occur. And last year, I think the number that we issued didn't even get fulfilled. But it sounds like this year, there's a need in excess of what we did last year. Correct?
Yeah, and so the way I'd answer that is that we talked about this and we were full this year. We got good at it this year, so that helps, right? I don't want to give an answer right now because I haven't talked to Matt about it, and I'd like to do that because there might be things that he knows that I don't. But we've had that conversation and we think that we should not fill all of them up so nobody else can. So,
Yep.
yeah, I can come back to you and we can work on that.
Awesome.
You're talking about for the next time. You're not talking about doing it next week or something, right?
I think that there is a unmet need right now that we should consider, whether it's encouraging them to reach out directly to Public Works so that something could be coordinated or something like that. Like I think that what we're looking for is hopefully maybe a solution for today that Counselor Townsley can go back to. I haven't been approached to anybody, but he says he's been approached by several people. So it might not be another 100, but it might be another 10 or 15.
Okay, yeah, on that one, I appreciate the question. And on that one, I do need to talk to Matt because
Okay.
we've got equipment and assets and stuff that may be tied up. I don't know, but I will look into it.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification. Counselor Small.
Question, maybe Trent knows the answer to this about, it seems like we've got, is it 4 separate restaurant type buildings that seem like they've been forever under construction and not opening? One out across from McDonald's, the donut shop, the beer spa, and it seems like there's one other one.
You're thinking to the sandwich shop. then?
And what?
The Mountain Goat.
Sandwich shop.
Yeah, is it just incompetence or are they, what's going on with, you can tell us?
Yes, it's not due to a delay by our department. Generally, it's just been delays with either equipment that some of those folks are requesting, materials, or other issues with the business getting going. But it's not that they're waiting on inspections.
Or liquor permits. They all have
Liquor
them.
permits, various reasons.
And it takes a long time to get the liquor permit. Is that part of the?
It takes a little bit of time, but they've all gone through it. They all have them.
Okay, and my other comment was that I had interaction with our broadband community service recently, and they were absolutely great to deal with. But I ended up with a couple of questions. They explained to me that I was paying for a service, internet service, that my router was incapable of fulfilling. It's the router that was recommended to me when I bought the service from Community Broadband. But they came in and said, "Oh, you're paying for way more giga speed," I think he said, "than what your router can accommodate. So I'm going to leave this router with you, and it'll do the speed that you're paying for. But I can't sell you this router. You either have to buy another one, or I'm going to charge you $10 a month rent for this one." And I wanted to ask, that seems stupid. Why don't you just sell me the router? I don't want to rent a router. I want to own the router. Why can't you sell it to me?
That's a hard one. I do the same thing. I pay $10 a month and I can't really explain why either, but I'll look into it. There is a reason. I don't know.
Once a month, I ought to just roll over and say, yeah, fine, $10. But no, that's not, don't wanna rent a router.
Something to look at. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Oh, no, where are you? Here.
So I want to talk a minute about the 3 Mile project, the landscaping and the things that we've done. It was brought up last meeting that it's taken a pretty heavy hit and that new landscaping is a good portion of it might not survive. And so Jacob did use his Placer AI to kind of track the activity around that area. And it is mainly coming from the Glenwood Park neighborhood and Park West neighborhood and the adjacent neighborhood. So I am making a plea to my friends and neighbors in my neck of the woods to be sensitive to that area and stay on the designated paths. Don't trod in areas where landscaping has been done, where protective mat's been down. Don't cut fencing. Don't, kind of cut across barriers or to access areas, and just, please be respectful of that investment so that we don't have to go back and either fix it and spend more money or go without a nice amenity.
Thank you. Counselor Smith.
Thank you. On January 15th, a lead public education officer for the county health department came and talked to us about sugary drinks and their health hazards, particularly for growing young people, recommending ways to discourage their distribution and their overconsumption. At that time, we talked some about the one place where that might be relevant in the city, and that's at the rec center. I was over there for a class this morning and the pop machines are gone. I have not yet determined whether they've just been moved to a little bit more out of the way place instead of right next to the daycare center, or if they're actually gone, but I'll let you know. At the Colorado River Water Conservation District State of the River presentation, where we heard about dire situations on snowpack and water supplies, the director of the district put out a public call for citizens voluntarily or municipalities more regulatorily to water lawns only 1 day per week. I know that Glenwood Springs generally has some watering restrictions, or at least even odd recommendations related primarily to maintaining water pressure. I wonder if we ought to at least look into this request from the River District and see if it's something the city wants to play ball on. And finally, I was really proud of us during the discussion about the SPEAR contract. The dynamics of that discussion were open, were listening, were changing changed my mind. I changed my mind again. And it was really fun to see that kind of really interactive informing of each other. So thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Schachter.
A few observations and kudos. There is a new bathroom in place, not quite functional yet. If you haven't noticed, on North Landing, long promised and delivered on time. We have some really nice new fencing along our river trail near where the proposed gardens are. Brand new fencing, really nice. I also want to give kudos. There was a joint event, there was an event with the chamber last night, was it, or 2 nights ago? The Latino Business Enterprising Forum. It wasn't as well attended as last year, but extremely well organized. We had broadband staff there representing well. We had community development representing us very well. We had, and the keynote and organizer was Giovanna Kennedy, who's on one of our commissions. Gladys was there as well. It was just a really well done, appreciated event. So I just wanted to mention that. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Counselor Weimer?
No, thank you.
Nothing. Okay, thank you. Just real quick. It's more to put a bug in your ear. Strawberry Days is around the corner. I think it's June 19th, 20th, somewhere there. And we are scheduled to serve beer, believe it or not. I signed us up, so I hope that I can get the same crew as last year and then some. We're gonna need about 10 to 12 people. Last year we did it. We had some counselors there, some former counselors. City attorney was there, and Ryan and some city staff. So let me know who can make it. Text me, whatever. I just need to get a group
We're gonna
together.
do 2 days?
No, I think it's just Saturday.
Just Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday, 2-hour shift from what,
Any
and it's
coaching
usually,
How to not break my fingernail? Do I use
It could-
polish? Or
well, there is pop openers.
Opener you can
Yeah,
use.
there's openers you can use, but
June 20th?
But June 20th, I think. Yeah, and last year I think we made over $500 in tips that went to the Strawberry Day Foundation, which was great. So I hope we can repeat this.
I'm in.
So I think it goes to different.
Yeah, I think it goes to different things. That's all I wanted to.
I'm in there.
Like I said, yep, bug in your ear. So anyway, city manager, Steve Boyd, what do you got?
Thank you. 3 Mile. I went down there with Parks earlier in the week, and you're right. I mean, we picked a bad year to be having a bad year. With really low water levels, we've got all this vegetation and landscaping that we put in that we're really struggling with. There's a lot of salinity in that water. I mean, I think there's certainly more than I ever realized. So that's a little bit of a challenge. Yes, the neighborhood uses the park mostly. I don't know, though, that any of the vandalism that we've had is necessarily from the neighborhood. There are people that come and go all the time from there. So we're going to turn irrigation on pretty soon. We're going to have to, leave that irrigation down there for a couple of years. We're working with RFOV on the the creek crossing over there. So we're going to try to improve that a little bit. We're going to repair fencing. We're going to install some new fencing on the east side that directs people towards the rivers. Trees, we're not going to replace trees this year. We're going to put in more salt tolerant stuff when it's appropriate. Let's see, noxious weed mitigation. On further sort of definition of the walking paths that go through there. So those are the steps that we're going to take, right now. It was a bad year to have a bad year. I mean, it was just a little bit of a perfect storm. So that's one thing. Fab grants. We got Fab grants in. We have 60 grants for $615,000. And 2 years ago, I pulled that up here, we had 39 grants for $220,000. That we awarded $220,000. We were probably asked for a little bit more than that. So that continues to grow for us. We had CMA at Hotel Colorado this week. They do a fantastic job. It was really good. I had a lot of comments. I had a lot of comments about how good it looks over there, especially from people that have been coming here for years to the Hotel Colorado because it's always here. And they're noticing 6th Street and they said North Landing looks fantastic and how clean the city is and whatever you guys are doing is working. So that was pretty cool. The other thing that happens at CMA every year is I was going to say a lot. There's quite a bit. There's some complaining from people about their city councils, right? I mean, they don't treat my staff well. They, go behind my back. They, there's a lot of stuff. And I always come out of there feeling lucky that you guys are so pro staff. And I'm kind of the envy of that one in a lot of the sessions that we have. So thank you. I know I say that a lot, but thank you for all of your support. We've got an extra week, I think, this year. We have May 7th. Right. So that's good. Sarah is out next week. So take it easy on me. Let's see. I learned today that FMLD awarded us $250,000 for the 19th Street project that we're doing.
Nice.
So when you see those guys, tell them thank you. That was pretty cool.
Nice.
I think that's it for me.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Carl Hanlon, city attorney.
I don't really have anything tonight. I did want to say the CMA in town is always pretty cool. I always try to stop by and say hi to everybody. We did a client dinner. City county
Yeah, Colorado City
City
and County
County
Managers
Managers.
Association. He's awesome.
So, yeah, no, so we did, my firm did a dinner for our clients and a few others last night. Kind of a lot of the same thing, heard a lot of the same comments about downtown, you know, ped bridges, like just all of the amenities that the community has for the size the community is and how they look and what it's like. So it was a lot of fun to see the cross pollination with all those folks last night. So anyway, that was about it.
I was there. We ran the bill up on him.
Of course you did. Thank you. Any correspondence?
No, sir.
Not tonight. Mayor Pro Tem Solinsky social event.
Yeah, I think we're gonna reconvene at Tapatio.
As always, excellent. And I'm entertaining a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion. I need a second and a second. Let's please use the vote buttons. Call for the question.
It seems